Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 155. I am joined in the garage tonight by returning guests multiple times, actually, both of you. We've got Spencer Lappin.
What's up, Steve?
Hey, sup? Cool. You got a lot of energy. I like that. And then Amy Schirtzinger.
Hi, Steve.
Hi. Hi. Wow. You guys both had Red Bulls or something.
She packs a powerful punch, too.
Yeah? All right. Well, anyways, we've got some interesting stuff going on tonight. We are going to have somewhat of a rum episode for part one here, and then also smoking the San Cristobal Revelation, which is a great cigar, medium body. I didn't know what to pick with this smorgasbord of rums that you bring because I don't know much about them, but I do want to thank Amy for bringing those. And Amy, give a quick plug to your pub here in the Columbus area.
It's McClellan's Pub. It's on Sawmill Road, right off the highway. We are an American pub with Irish inspiration. Scratch kitchen, ton of whiskey, bourbon, scotch.
Yes. Amazing selection of whiskeys and just everything, really. And the food is fantastic. So
open a little later now, too, right?
Finally.
Yeah. I want to thank our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, for the San Cristobal Revelation that we're smoking tonight. It's the Legend size. It's a Toro. We'll get into that a little bit. These guys, well, Spencer's already lit it up. I have yet to do so, but looking forward to it. Also, Altadis USA, we have some Romeo Julieta, kind of in ode to Valentine's Day coming up here.
Aww.
Yeah, I thought that'd be nice.
Okay.
Romeo Julieta, the Reserva Real, kind of a milder blend. But thank you, Altadis and Josh Bentley, for getting those to us and for sponsoring the show for 2 years now, which is fantastic. And then also BS Cigar Company. We've got some people in the Bourbon and BS community page that just am going to be shipping out some up to Lima, Ohio. He had seen some posts about the BS cigars and wanted to try those. So that's a great way to do it. Just contact either the podcast or BS Cigar Company or Tinderbox at Easton, kind of all going to the same place there so they can get you some gold or silver. They're all Nicaraguan cigars, so we appreciate that as well. BS Cigar Company. And also patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. This is a way for you guys to contribute. And we've got some more t-shirts on the way. We've got some patrons in the garage. We appreciate that. And then also out there, I know we just had a couple of people up there, monthly contribution. So we really appreciate that. It keeps it going for the equipment and everything else and just really helps support the show. So we appreciate that 100%. And then that, Spencer, how have you been?
It's rocky Uber ride over here.
Yeah. Do we have a snow emergency yet?
No, not a snow emergency.
Level 1. All right, let's see where we go with it.
Columbus, Ohio, dealing with snow is still working on it, I guess. But
yeah,
I'm doing well, man. I was in Louisville, Kentucky earlier today.
Nice. Just
for work, not for the bourbon. But
did you have some bourbon?
I may have dibble-dabbled a little bit.
Checked it out.
Yeah, checked it out.
Right.
But I'm doing great, man.
Good.
Yeah, it feels good to be back. It's, I guess, close to a year since Amy and I were on it together last time. I think she's been on it between, and I think I've been on it a couple times in between, but it's about a little over a year anniversary since we've had her, so it's good to have her back.
Absolutely. Amy, how have things been? We're going to get into it a little bit, I think, after we start sipping on some of the stuff, but you've had a lot of local press, which has been really cool to see.
It's been I don't want to say make it or break it for us, the difference between that, but getting out there has definitely been doing that for sure.
Helps out.
We've seen just a lot of places close and making, ourselves out there aware, people are aware of the issues that are going on and stuff.
Well, I think as people read those articles and stuff like that, because they know everyone in this industry and your industry is struggling through this year and now in 2021. And so it's one of those things that they don't necessarily think about individual spots or individual owners or
so we did an industry I don't want to say protest, but kind of down at the State House. We paired up with Prohibition, Elton at Prohibition. It's
in Powell, Ohio, right?
In Powell. He's super and very supportive in his Powell community, but also just in the industry. And just kind of getting the word out there that people are really struggling and this affects a lot of people. Yeah.
As Shannon's listening in the studio, we're just going to run that tape back there for you.
This is when you call the radio show as a sports talk. Could you turn your radio down, sir?
Ma'am,
you turn the radio.
You have feedback.
What's that? What's that? What was it? It was Columbus Alive?
It was Columbus Alive. Yeah, we did about the pandemic in that one.
So Columbus Alive came to you, or did you go to them?
They came to me.
And then what was the gist of the article? What were you trying to get across to people, and what has been the response to it?
Just how it affects us and how we have to immediately make changes to the business and how we have to do that and the things that we have to change, and just kind of going over how business is so different right now and how we're adapting. That's kind of what we talked about.
Nice. Yeah. I know you've done a lot of adapting.
Yeah.
I met Spencer at McClellan's one night not too long ago, and I'm looking around, and you had it nicely laid out where
yes.
You didn't remove the tables because you don't really have a place to store them, I imagine.
No, but we just shut them down.
Yeah.
So we're out. I mean,
barely find a place to sit.
Max capacity, we still have at least 7 tables we can't seat.
Right.
And that's a problem. We're not very big, so.
You got the separation at the bar and stuff like that. So just kind of things that is the state telling you have to do these things, or are these just things that you're doing so that the state, if they come in, doesn't have to say something?
How do I answer this? We love to abide by the rules.
Go on.
Good answer.
Talk about these rums here in a second.
We love to abide by the rules, but they are not my rules.
Right.
So these are state rules, and we want people to feel comfortable. We want everybody to come out and be safe. We want to be safe ourselves. And, we have a bunch of different age groups too that come out. So they feel differently. All of them feel differently about coming out. So we want everybody to feel comfortable. Are
you seeing a difference in even the last month or 2 months now that people are starting to get the vaccine and
Absolutely.
things like that?
Yeah. This past weekend, actually, we had a lot of people that really didn't want to go by any rules.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So that wasn't fun.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, people are like real ready.
What are you talking about? Just
like they don't want to wear masks, they don't want to distance, they're rude when they sit down because they're mad that I'm asking them to put a mask on, and we still have rules.
Yeah, those are the rules for the state. I mean, they're not, and the rules for any retail or restaurant establishment. It's not like so they're coming in trying to start a ruckus,
right?
Because they know if they go there or they go to Applebee's, they're dealing with the same thing,
right? I mean, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to just be safe and grab some great drinks.
Trying to stay open is what you're trying to do. I mean, as a business, we're the same way in the cigar industry, and it's like we get more and more like, oh, you guys don't have to put those masks on. Like if there's no customers in there, we're distanced a bit and we don't have our masks. We start putting them on. They're like, oh, you guys don't need to put those on for us. And we're like, yes, we do, but mostly because the state tells us to. You know what I mean? Like it's not really about you,
right?
But yeah, I've noticed a lot of people are getting that like kind of COVID fatigue, and it fucked with a lot of people this last year.
Ooh.
And
you did it this time. That wasn't me.
Yeah. Well,
fatigue?
No.
The F word, fatigue. No, it did. It messed with a lot of people, and I think at this point, people are. It's so interesting because in the state of Ohio, and I don't want to stay on this too much, but everyone's talking about the vaccine, and now like for your industry, for example, the curfew was pushed back to 11, and then if we have less hospitalizations. And there's so many different factors, but everyone's talking about the vaccine. Literally just now hit 3% of the Ohio population has had 2 vaccines, and they're still saying you still need to let it sit for like another couple weeks. But people are like, oh no, people are getting vaccinated. Or like I had one person come in to the shop after his first vaccine shot, and he almost already felt like he's good now. And you're like, there's
like Superman.
Yeah. It's insane. All right.
Want to do it?
What are we drinking? We're in part 1 here. Let's
go ahead, Amy.
How many Red Bulls did you have, Spencer?
Just one sugar-free for the first time in a month. Why?
It's gonna be a long couple hours.
I haven't had caffeine. Yeah. The biggest.
Yeah.
So today I brought some Foursquare rums. I am not really a rum girl. I like the whiskey, the bourbon, the scotch. These are all aged in bourbon barrels, so these really blew me away. These are they're a great rum to begin with. They have a fantastic bourbon finish. These are not available in Ohio. Some of them I'm not sure if they're available anywhere. I have a friend who goes down and is really into rum. He goes down to Barbados and does some picks, and he has introduced me to these rums, and I think that any bourbon drinker will love them. They are packed full of flavor. They're really complex. They're all really high proof. So there's that.
And why did you want to? You said you had a reason why you wanted to bring them on the show.
I wanted to bring them because I feel with the things that they are doing, the awards that they are winning, you're going to see these. You're going to want these. And I think that if we can kind of get the word out early, Ohio doesn't really have this style of rum anywhere. I have never tasted a rum that's anything like this. and I just really appreciated it. So I think that, you know, the more we're getting into aged tequilas and, you know, just the different types of barreling that everybody's doing, that this is definitely going to be the next big thing.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wanted to get it out there and have people try it a little bit and talk about it and get people aware of that. This will also make your palate very happy if you like bourbon.
And what's the first one we've got here in the glass?
This one here. This is one of the newest ones. This one is a 14 Empery.
Empery. And the brand is Foursquare?
It's Foursquare. All of them are Foursquare.
14-year aged?
Yep. It's this is part of the exceptional cask selection, which means anything that's from that group, they're just a really rare blend that they did, and you won't see them again. They're once in a lifetime. So once they're gone, they're gone.
Is it from Barbados or where is it from?
Yep. They're all from Barbados.
Is it single? Like, so it's a small batch.
They're all small batch.
Yeah,
so with the rums, they have like columns and they have a copper still, and they blend those two together. But it's a single blend.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they're still singles. They still have the rarity of a single, but to actually make it, they make rum a little bit differently. But it's a single blend.
When do they age it in the bourbon barrel, or is it aged there the whole time?
I believe they make it and then age it in there.
Okay.
So.
May I see that bottle?
Yeah.
Pardon my reach there.
So this one, the
question is it finished in the barrel or is it aged in the barrel? So I think
it's aged for 14 years. The 14-year statement is in the barrel.
And what we learned from Miguel on previous episodes as far as aging, Nate, when you've got the opposite, right, of whiskeys or bourbons.
So when Miguel was on back in December, it's not uniform just yet, but most of the rum distillers, whatever the age statement is, that's going to be the youngest that is in it. But there are still some rums where that's the oldest, but most of them, whatever. So if that's 14-year, they're saying that's the youngest one. Like when we had Miguel on with the Zacapa Solera 23, the youngest rum in that was 23 years.
Yeah, this says on here, a blend of single matured rums, example bourbon, and double matured rums, bourbon and sherry, matured for a total of 14 years. Each rum is a blend of the copper double, what does this say? Retort pot still and the traditional twin column coffee still before barrel filling. So yeah, kind of what you were saying. You had that, right, Amy? So you do the still, put it through the copper stills and everything, and then you do a little bit of both. But it doesn't really say how many, but it does say non-chill filtered, authentic rum, no blender or color has been added.
So the special thing about this too is they also don't add a bunch of sugar at the end, where a lot of, not going to name names, but a lot of other rums at the very end add color and just a crap ton of sugar. And these are natural flavors. These are the flavors of the rum. You really get it, especially in the first sip. You can just taste the rum and then you finish with the bourbon.
This tastes like caramel.
Yeah.
I mean, caramel, vanilla. I mean, this is plenty
but
sweet. But
it's sugar cane, but it's not sugary.
You're right. It's not too sweet.
No.
You get the essence of the caramel, but not overly powerly, just pure sweetness. They would cherry juice or something like that.
The master distiller here, his name is Richard.
Richard's fine.
Okay. Seal, I think is his last name.
Once again, Amy has a full disclaimer out there for that. She is not the rum expert.
I'm not the rum expert.
Before we went on, she's like, I might say I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't.
Which is fine.
Anyways, but he's talking about how important it is to really taste the rum. If it's a good rum, you don't need to add a bunch of sugar at the end. Rums are traditionally very sweet in the United States, but if you have a really solid rum with really great original flavors, you don't need to add a bunch of sugar at the end. And I feel like these would not be the same with a bunch of sugar at all.
So this one's not available in Ohio, correct?
No, none of them are.
But what would you say the retail cost on something like this would be if it was available in Ohio, or what's it cost in other states?
I think there's somewhere around 100.
Okay.
I think for each of them, somewhere around there.
Yeah, for a cask strength, you're looking at some just compare it to bourbons, right? So you got cask strength, small batch, one and done, not like a small batch, like a Four Roses small batch where it's a continuous product. This is a one and done, so it's that makes sense. Plus with the age on it and everything.
Yeah, I was asked by a few people when I told them that we were doing rum tonight, and they're like, "Well, I thought the name of the podcast is Bourbon and BS." It's like, well, actually, rum is much more commonly used when in the places where they actually do cigars, where they actually roll cigars. Latin America, Cuba, stuff like that. Rum is the beverage of choice. It's really only in America where we do bourbon and whiskey.
That's because we don't have rums like these.
That's because we don't have rums like these. But my guess is that they don't probably bourbon's not as popular in other places as it is here. It's
not, and you can't get it really. So like I know in Cuba, for example, they don't have much of it. I know that like Alex Galez, who's the roller and the main guy at Hotel Comodoro, he's a huge whiskey guy, and he loves it. So when we went down there, Mark Jeremias, who has not been on, but Brad Grimsley has been on a couple years back now on the podcast. But that's two of the gentlemen I went down to Cuba with. And so Mark brings down, he brought down a bottle of Blanton's for him, and just, Alex was blown away because he can't get it. So it's just, again, communist country, they're not really going to be throwing all this bourbon out there. But it is starting to gain, I think, some popularity by way of America, the U.S. rather. But I agree. You're just not going to find it. But it is very popular with cigars. As far as the name of the podcast, that's the name of the podcast, all right? We can do whatever we want on here.
Well, they're also aged. They're aged longer than a lot of bourbons are.
Right.
In a bourbon cask. So
I am happy to switch it up. I think this is, I don't know.
And there's bourbon on the table.
Yeah, somewhere between 10 and 15 times I've been on this. This is the first time I've done rum, so I was genuinely excited to try something different. And whenever I've been at your place and we said, "Hey, can we try something different?" You've suggested a rum, and I've never been disappointed. Always pleasantly surprised. I just think our knowledge on this is just not where it should be, just because it's new.
Right. We don't have this kind of stuff.
But I think people that are sick of bourbon,
no, you can't be sick of bourbon.
You can get sick from bourbon.
You can get sick from bourbon. I think if you are bourbon or bourboned out, I think rum is the next big thing.
I would also argue that it might be the cure too. You can get sick from it, but it also might be the cure.
Could be the cure. Yeah. It's how you look at it. None of us are doctors here, but I will say that the rum, I agree, is probably the next. And we've been saying that actually a while, with Miguel, and be fun to have Amy on with Miguel actually at some point, doing something with the rums, because he's our rum expert. He's very enthusiastic about it, knows a lot about it. And he's with a company called Crowned Heads. I thought about getting a Crowned Heads to go with tonight.
I enjoy Crowned Heads.
Yeah, because we're drinking rum and for Miguel, but this is going fine. But I think it is. You had your run already with vodkas, right, for a while in your industry, and then obviously whiskey and bourbon is huge right now.
We've seen a ton with tequila lately.
Tequilas, that's what I was saying. Tequila's like the really kind of one going on right now. But rums, at least in Ohio and other states, is just not a huge thing because they made their mark, kind of like whiskey did a while back, years ago, when it was just they tried to get into the mixer world. They did, no one was drinking just good whiskey at that time. Back in 60s and then 70s and everything like that. And so now you've gone full circle. And I think rum might get back to that point that, Bacardi and everything else.
It's perception versus reality too. People think one thing, but then they try this and they're like, oh my God, I'd buy that every day of the week.
Well, rum was a rum and Coke, it's the fruit drinks. It's what do you don't just sip on rums typically.
The ones dark and the light at your bar and stuff like that.
They don't sell. That's they're in business to make money, not just the
I think
enthusiast
if
side.
we were able to purchase these, I think that these definitely would sell. I think that these would.
Especially with cigars. It goes fantastic with any type of cigar, I gotta imagine.
They kind of, to me, when I've enjoyed them with cigars, they complement kind of like a cognac would, because they do have that sweetness to them that really enhances the cigar and kind of complements that, and I think that it might take the place of a cognac for those drinkers.
I'd love it if you would bring some cognacs as well.
Do you think
there's some
cognac? I believe it.
Is the G silent or hard?
I don't know.
Hey, I keep my cognac where I keep my crown.
Oh,
is that a shout out to Bobby Hirschman?
Hey, Bobby.
He asked you to smile for him. It's getting weird already.
What's your name?
So what do you guys think of this one in particular?
Go ahead, Amy.
The Empery.
I love it. I think it has so much. Favorite
of the?
Ooh, I don't know if I have a favorite.
Okay.
I don't know if I have a favorite.
Right,
I love it because it's so full. It's sweet. This is one of the newest ones that I've received. And every single time, I get to try a new one, I'm like, all right, let's try. And every single time I'm blown away. So I really appreciate all these. They all have really rich flavor to them.
I like the fact that I like some bourbons can almost get the sense of butterscotch, if they're aged correctly and things like that. And this has some butterscotch to it, has some caramel to it. If you like that sweetness, and not everyone does, some people like, things that are a little harsher or peppery or things along those lines. But
yeah,
if you enjoy something, again, I think she said it excellently, where it was, you get the essence of the sweetness, but it's not sweet. You get the smell of caramel, you get the taste of caramel, but it's not sweet. I think it's delicious. It's actually one of the favorite rums I've ever had.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it also is the fact that it is cask strength. So what did we say it was? No, it's 56%. So nothing crazy.
112.
112. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of these get a little bit higher.
But I think
does not taste 112 though. Maybe at the back.
The back. That's what I was gonna say. This one has, I think, a little bit of like heat, but almost like again, I was sipping on that one that Nate gave me before the podcast, so like cinnamon, but it's kind of got that little bit of the minty, finish. And I think that's what takes away from, if this was like an 80 proof or whatever, like it would probably just be that caramel and molasses and everything else. It'd be very easy to drink, but there wouldn't be much substance there. So the fact that they kept it where they're at, and they're doing it with the sherry cask and also the bourbon, and the bourbon.
Do you get any Angel's Envy
absolutely
with this?
Yeah.
Kind of the portness of it, stuff like that. That's kind of where I'm going with it. But for 14 years, I mean, it's got some
dark
depth to
too.
it.
I mean, if you look at the color,
yeah, it's a beautiful caramel color and
ones.
things like that. I think it's fantastic.
I want to throw this up here.
Yeah, I don't know what the other three are, but I think it's going to be hard to compete with this one.
So Raina Powell says, love the Foursquare. Super delicious. So someone out there knows about this stuff.
Raina. She works for me.
Oh, yeah.
She works.
All right, come on.
She works.
Say that. Yeah. All right.
And Mrs. Crane has a comment.
Dorothy is not listening tonight that I know of.
She's a saint.
She is a saint. God bless her. I was at work today, and moms do what moms do. And she calls me like 2:00, and I'm at work, and she never does that. So I'm like, oh shit. I was like, hey, Brian, I gotta take this. I'm like, all right. Hey, I'm at Kohl's, and we were talking about sheets the other day, and I got a 30% off, and it's 50% off on top of that. Like, what color do you want? I'm like, all right, Mom. It was so sweet. I mean, it was, and it's just like, Brian, I was like talking to a customer. I got to take this. I don't know what it's going to be about.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
There's two types of people in this world: people that like black sheets and people that don't like black sheets.
I don't do black. Okay. I'll do navy, like a dark blue, not black.
All right.
Amy? What?
Depends on what kind of week I'm having.
Woo! Multiple colors. Multiple colors. Fair enough.
I'm trying to make sure this does not start updating midway. So go ahead here. What are we drinking next?
Oh, okay, you're going to ask me to pronounce the next two, and yes. I am not going to do that.
Still pronounced Foursquare.
It is. This one,
surprisingly.
This is also from the exceptional line. Yeah. This is also a 14-year.
Is Foursquare the name of the distillery? Or
that's the brand. Okay. So the family that owns this, they own another one too, and both companies have won crazy awards the last few years. Foursquare specifically has won best rum 3 out of the past 4 years from one award, and 4 out of the past 4 years from the other award. So the family themselves have been doing this for a really long time. I think they started it in 98. Doing this.
You can tell us whatever you want. I mean,
yeah, I'm just agreeing with it. Sounds right.
So they took they took an old family recipe and kind of brought it back to life with both companies, and have just been really winning down there. So
we should go to Barbados.
Can we write that off?
I think I'd like Barbados better than Nicaragua. I think it'd be a different experience.
Newt, can we write that off?
It'd be a different experience.
Yeah, like
we did training,
the resorty part.
Write it off on what, the podcast?
Yeah, use that.
Oh, I was gonna just make turn it. Like normally when I go on a trip, I'll turn it into like a training.
Yeah,
we would love to be trained.
Yeah,
I feel
absolutely.
See, yeah,
McClellan's Pub can absolutely pay for our trip down.
That's how we do our barrel picks. We
perfect.
get on and do a training and pick a whatever. So do we need to like finish this to start this one out? This is going to be a real rough night.
I think so. We don't have to pour as heavy.
Speak for yourself.
It's going to be asleep by the last one.
So in between here, I'll throw this out here.
What cigar are we
drinking? The
here,
San Cristobal.
Oh, can I get a light, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, you need to light up here.
Yeah.
So San Cristobal Revelation, this is going to be an Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper, which we actually smoked last week with the Leaf by Oscar Sumatra.
What is Sumatra?
Sumatra is, I just did this. It's an island off of Ecuador, and that's where this the seed is originally grown.
Is Sumatra mostly known for wrappers, or they do fillers?
Wrapper.
So
And
it's
that's actually
basically
part of
only
it, yeah, so-
wrappers.
So it's review from last week for those that haven't listened to the last episode. This is going to be something that it's known more for. You don't see much Ecuadorian Sumatra filler or binder.
Yeah, it was just unique
Yeah.
when you mentioned on the podcast last week. I just hadn't heard
Mhm.
much about it.
So the rest of this is going to be Nicaraguan throughout underneath that wrapper, binder filler. And so this San Cristobal, we've talked about it before on the podcast. This is something that it's under the Ashton umbrella, but Ashton is a company here in the United States. They don't necessarily have any factories. They don't have any farms or anything. They are, in essence, they work with different companies. So all the Ashton products are going to be Fuente products, Arturo Fuente products, Dominican Republic. The San Cristobal products are going to be through the My Father factory and working with the Garcia family. So like My Father, Don Pepin, that's going to be where these are made, and also, all their tobacco and everything else. So you're coming from major great factories and farms. San Cristobal, and we've done it before. This is an old Cuban brand name. So just like one of their other Ashton's other products is going to be the La Roma de Cuba. They secured the rights to San Cristobal as an ode to the Cuban brand, and then they've done things great with it. But I'd say medium bodied.
Yeah, it's definitely medium.
I tried to pick something that I think would go with. I remember these were some higher proofs.
Yeah,
I don't go too mild. It is a soft box press on this one. I do. I
like the
enjoy
box
it,
too.
yeah.
So thank you.
Mm-hmm. But it's a nice cigar. It carries its own weight as far as, up against different drinks, foods, and everything else. So it's not going to get lost necessarily. But I also don't think it's very overpowering that it's going to, whatever we're drinking, I don't think it's going to conflict too bad.
No, it has some really nice flavor.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's definitely medium body, but there are some specific flavors that I get that definitely stand up to the rum that almost separate themselves from the rum. There's no sweetness, anything like that. There's almost a little
There's a note
funk.
of something.
Yeah, it's a little something. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know, Steve. What are you getting from it?
It's like halfway through the inhale, you get it.
Halfway through the inhale, I get a finish with it that's going nicely with this. Is almost it's a slight sweetness, balanced sweetness that I think goes really well with this. Is that something we talked about also last week, I believe, Nate, that the Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper is kind of known for adding that little bit of mild balanced sweetness to it. And I think that's where I'm getting at the end, kind of back here. And the retrohale actually is nice because it's got a little bit of just a slight amount of pepper for me. The retrohale, again, kind of a review is when you don't inhale, but you kind of, draw it in the mouth, and then you can kind of push part of it through the nose, nasal cavity, and you're going to get different flavors from that as well. It's going to go really well together with your normal palate.
I was trying the second Foursquare, and I was like, man, that's got like a little bit more bite, and I couldn't tell what it was. And I just looked at the proof. I was like, oh, that's
why.
That's 122.
Yeah.
Cool.
Got some heat to her?
Not heat, just I'd say bite. Again, they're very, very smooth. It's nothing like a Booker's or anything like that. It's just very smooth. Just a little bit of
it's nice.
Like just a little bit of that on it. Yeah.
Is that Red Bull kicking in again?
Yeah.
He's barking.
Have you tried it yet?
No, I'm still working on this.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I was talking.
I think the first one has a little bit more caramel, and the second one has the same amount of caramel and stuff like that, but it's just got a little bit more heat to it.
Well, yeah. So you got a higher proof, and you said this is also 14 years. Now, is this one? Can I see which bottle is that? Does this one do similar type of maturing as far as the bourbon?
I believe so. Well, yeah, they're all in ex-bourbon.
Well, so this one, Madeira as well. So it doesn't have the sherry cask finish.
So some of them are finished twice, and some of them are.
Yeah.
So I haven't really broken down which one's which yet, because again, I don't really have like a rep for these things.
So
I can't.
with your friend who's able to hook you up with these things, does he say, hey, these are things I think you'd like, or do you tell them, hey, these are some of the things I'm looking for, or do you do any tastings before you buy a bottle?
Well, I can't buy a bottle because I can't have them at McClellan's. It's not a
These are
McClellan's
gifts.
product. Yeah, these are just.
That's entrapment.
These are just
You
fun.
have to tell me if you're a cop.
These are just fun things that are enjoyable to drink.
Stop pressing her. Yeah. Can we get a spotlight on Amy, please? This is
hot under these lights.
it's hot under these lights. Is anyone else sweating? It does say, as opposed to the first one, and it's really tough to see in this light here. But it's a total of 14 years again, but it doesn't distinguish that some of it is just in the bourbon, some of it's in the sherry. This is going to be, and I think I'm saying, yeah, it's going to be the bourbon, ex-bourbon, and also ex-Madeira. Is that right?
So the cool thing about rum is that they can use anything to age it in.
Yeah.
Their regulations are not the same as what we have in the States for bourbon. So they can age it in wine, cognac. I mean, just anything.
Are there standards that make something a rum?
Yes. So I'm not 100% sure what exactly they are because they're very different depending on the country.
Would you say looser standards?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're looser standards. They don't have the same age statements all the time as we have to have for something like a bourbon or new casks or percentage. I don't know. They don't have all those, but they vary per country that makes them, which is very different. I had
that's right. We've talked about that before on the podcast. Yeah.
So
the standards per country depend on whether it's a rum or not.
Yeah. What they would kind of their qualifications to call it a rum. I had one from Belize that was very different from this, also really, really good. But the flavors were very different. And I just country to country, I think it's a little bit different how they like to do it. But the experimenting that they can do with it because of the different barrels they're allowed to use really give a vast set of flavors.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure exactly what they're using at Foursquare because no one's ever taken me to Barbados, but
you have this friend, right?
Just drink the drink.
All right.
So like let's just say like a Captain Morgan or something like that. Like does it how long is something like that aged for?
I have no idea.
Okay. I have no idea if it's a year, if it's 2 years.
They don't put that on the bottle. I'm not sure. But I do know that with something like Captain, I don't want to speak for Captain, but with something like that, they do put a pound of sugar in it. So that flavor is going to be a little bit different than this flavor.
Okay.
Yeah. What's interesting too is like, so in Cuba, for example, like their rums are much more traditional, like this, right? And so like the Bacardi family, before they sold all of that, it was much more like that. Like you had an 8-year, you had several, and they were fantastic. And they've changed it all again. I want to point out, you look at the back of this bottle.
1 year. One year.
A whole 12 months. It's good. Goes well with Coke.
Thank you.
This is Coca-Cola,
whatever you want to do.
I would never mix these though.
No, these are fine.
Yeah.
What I found interesting on this is a it looks like it's distributed mostly through the UK.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
On here, and they have like a warning. So in this bottle, there's 42.7 units, I believe is what it's saying. It says the UK chief medical officers recommend adults do not regularly drink more than 14 units.
They're not doctors either, though.
They're medical officers.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, but per week.
How much is a unit?
That is a fair question. That's the right question.
I think this bottle is so. This is what, about a fifth? Yeah, it's a little off. It's at 70. Was it cubic liter or centiliters? So 42.7 units are in this bottle, if I can read that correctly.
So don't drink a bottle a week.
And then they don't really say anything, but then they've got this. It looks like a silhouette of a pregnant woman.
So maybe it's just for pregnant people can't drink it.
No. That's just for adults, and then it's like the Ghostbusters logo, but with a pregnant woman. It's like just got the slash between it. Like if you're pregnant, this doesn't apply to you. So
there's 40 some units in there.
As much as you want if you're pregnant.
I don't think that's what it's saying.
So there's 40 some units in there, but don't drink more than 14 units.
I think so.
That doesn't sound right to me.
It's in really small
Again,
print, which
I'm not a doctor.
Is a liability.
But I feel like that doesn't sound.
So that means you can only drink a third of a bottle per week.
Is it can or should?
It's recommended by the UK medical. I mean, we're in America here, so it's
recommended.
Fine.
It's like when doctor said, "Yeah, a pack of Camel cigarettes a week is good for you." So it's just things change.
Yeah, I think that's current.
Is it? It's got to be 14 years ago for sure.
No. All right, so I'm sipping on this now. You guys continue talking about medical advice for all the listeners out there.
So I actually want to go back to the McClellan's piece here for a second here. What has been, so you've had different stages of challenges throughout this.
Yes.
Multiple.
Yes.
And when we had you on a year ago, there was, it's hard as a woman to run a bar.
Yeah, that was our topic.
It's hard as a woman to run a bar during COVID.
Yes.
Bar/restaurant.
It's hard for anyone now.
How are you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling pessimistic? Because there is a list of places that have recently gone out of business because they survived the first wave, but they couldn't survive the second wave of winter and stuff like that. So how are you feeling towards the future of, you can't speak for the whole industry,
right?
But I guess for you personally. And I
know
you're well financed and things like that, but go on.
Am I? Are you going to help me out here?
Do you have a GoFundMe?
It was so nice to have Amy on the podcast.
Is this something I don't know?
We may or may not see you a year from now.
Camera a little bit.
So I'm feeling very optimistic. I will feel much more optimistic once we're done with these. I'm pretty sure if you ask me again, it'll be totally different.
Rum seems to be a happy.
It's a happy
drunk.
That's what I was telling Spencer before the podcast. It's more of a happy drunk.
You're a happy.
Sometimes depends.
No, I feel a lot better. I feel like we know a little bit better what to do, how to do, what to expect, what people are looking for. When we first started this, we had to change the menu. People are eating different things.
What do you mean?
I can't sell salads, but I can sell mac and cheese all day long. People want something that that's going to fill them up. They want comfort stuff.
Really?
We've had to redo the menu time and time again just because I'm having trouble getting consistent product in, and that's for beer, and that's also for food. People aren't drinking the same things. So
wait, go back to the salad versus like like comfort food, right?
Right.
Do you think that? And I'm assuming here that it's at first, especially, people weren't as concerned about their diet and everything else. It was a little bit maybe.
I don't even think it's a diet issue. I think it's the world is not the same. We want to eat something that feels comfortable to us.
It's a night out. They want to enjoy themselves.
Right. I feel like when they take it to go and they're eating on the couch, they want something a little bit different. I think they can make salads at the house, and I feel like that's probably happening. Maybe not. I don't know. Not in my house, but
not in your house.
Not in my house either. No. But when they go out, they want to be comfortable again.
They want to enjoy a night out.
They're not comfortable. Everyone is getting sick. Everyone is worried about germs. Everyone's on high alert when they go out, and they want something to just kind of make them feel
escapism almost.
Yeah. So even with beer, the stuff that we're selling, my crowd especially is really, really into experimenting with new beers. I can get something that's crazy. I can get one keg of it. It's super rare. Nobody's had it. Do you want to try it? Absolutely. And now that's not really happening. They want to look at the board and see a name that they know and know that they like that beer.
So before they were more experimental, now they're creatures of comfort.
Yes.
And now more, not to bash on Steve, but more of the Miller Lights, more just the consistency.
I don't find offense that at all.
Like,
no, you should.
Nate, you grab me a Miller. I'm just kidding.
High life. It's a special occasion.
They really want they want to see brands that they know.
So the old faithfuls.
Yes. So even when I talk to the beer makers, distributors, reps, they're selling their go-tos. They're selling their staples, but they can't move seasonals. They can't move their experimental lines. I've noticed sours are down a ton, which before we could move sours like crazy, and they don't want to mess with it.
That's really interesting. Do you think it's your bar specific, or do you think that's a trend?
I think it's a trend because I'll ask them about the reps. They're telling me this too.
And what is their? I get it on the food aspect, but are you selling different types of bourbons and stuff like that? Or are people going more towards what they think?
Bourbons are still selling. Liquor is still up everywhere. But
to that same note, though, I mean, are they trying new ones, or are they going with the ones that they are comfortable with? Because there's a resounding comfort,
right?
Yeah,
I think bourbon drinkers are a little more experimental, anyways. They know that they like bourbon. They want, the new stuff that's coming out. They're willing to try that because it's still either a brand or a distillery that they know. We're not having a ton of new distilleries popping up. People just can't afford them. They're not starting these new things. So I think that it's I think it's easier for them to say, I've heard of this distillery. I'm willing to try their stuff, but it's less easy to try a brand new brewery that they've never heard of because they don't know if it's good or not.
So that's Ian out there, who's a Patreon supporter here. He says, well, since they don't go out as much and been a while, probably want to make sure that they enjoy it. Sometimes an experiment you try turns out not so great.
Right.
And that's a good point, because sometimes if you're not going out as much, you haven't gone out. Some people have been like myself, like whatever was allowed, I just kept kind of going.
Some people haven't been to a restaurant this whole time.
Yeah, I talked to some people that they just I talked to a customer today, and he was talking about they've taken like 3 different trips, and he's like, we've probably taken more trips than we have like out of the house, like to take a vacation, than they had to restaurants. And it's just the I guess the mindset, the mentality there is that it's, if you're safe going on these trips and you're in control, you try to distance yourself from people. That's a mindset in this whole crazy scheme that's been going on of things going on, that instead of going into a place like McClellan's Pub, you can't trust not necessarily the pub or the restaurant. It's the people around you that you may interact with.
I think that's interesting. I mean, we went to Asheville, North Carolina over New Year's and things like that. And, you know, we had most of our meals at restaurants and things like that. And more restaurants than been to in the past year. And I almost think that if you're on vacation, it's almost like escapism. Like you feel like you're away from the norm, and you feel not that COVID doesn't exist and things like that. We all do, but you feel, hey, if I'm in a different location, then there's different rules and things like that. So I think that's an interesting concept that you said that guy was going on more trips and things like that.
Well, it wasn't just him. I've heard this throughout, you know, the last year. What I really find ironic with this, and again, I don't want to go too far off because I'm sampling this one right now, but a lot of people that are very, very conscious of what they're doing with all of this stuff. Like they're trying not to go out to restaurants and all this stuff. And they're like, hey, I just got back from vacation. I was like, where'd you go? Florida. And it wasn't that long ago that Florida was the state that was getting bashed for just being like just a rebel and just be like, you know, fuck COVID, all this stuff. And it's just, we're going to do better. And it's like, so where'd you go? Florida. I'm like, oh.
You can also do more outdoor dining and stuff like that there.
You can. I'm just, there's been a lot of inconsistencies with all this stuff.
People feel different with the warmer weather too. They feel like, you know, you can be outside, you can have, you know, a different level of space with that warm weather. And I think right now too, with a lot of the cold, people don't want to be shoved in either a tent or, you know, a small restaurant. And
you know what's hilarious about this is that there's was in downtown Dublin, which is, you know, a suburb in Ohio, and these restaurants are just building big outdoor dining areas enclosed. I was like, oh, that's called a building. You're just building a building.
We're going to do a makeshift building, but not have no ventilation.
Yeah, no ventilation. And instead of walls, we're going to have plastic, and we're going to call that outdoor dining.
But that's where some of these that's where some of these rules are really confusing, because when you go and to make these kind of dining spaces, or to go adjust your own dining space, you think about just common sense. Does that make sense? And a lot of it doesn't to me.
It's inconsistent.
It's very inconsistent.
I think is what
when we shut down the first time and then we were ready to reopen, we had the health department in, and they were saying different things in the papers they were dropping off. We would call them and they were saying different things than the people that showed up.
Give us an example, just because we're not, you don't have to bash the health department, but just curious, what is some things that you said, hey, we thought we were doing this the right way, or we're overdoing it? So
not me specifically, but I know that Columbus and Dublin have different regulations.
Yeah.
And you know, I had a friend who put up the shower curtains, and then the fire department came by and said, you can't put up the shower curtains, they're against fire code. So then he had to spend more money and build partitions.
Yeah.
So again, you're spending more money that you don't have, but across the way in Dublin, you're allowed to have the shower curtains. That doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make sense in one city or county,
a state mandate.
It should be.
Well, it was state by state, and then you dive down to the city.
So that's kind of frustrating. Is that, you know, your neighbor, if you're technically in a different area, just
could be across the street. You have different regulations, and that's confusing, because, you know, if it makes sense over there, why wouldn't it make sense here? Well, you get it from the customers too, right? So the customers come in and they start, you know, spouting off what they know,
right?
And it's one of those things. Like, I was just at a restaurant, they did this. And then you, as an owner, or, you know, someone that's working there, I saw this happen. Like, even like hostess or you know, hosts, the people that are checking people in, or bartenders or servers, they're having to field these complaints or questions, and it's everyone's an expert,
right?
Or they're behind a screen when they host you, and then they walk you to your table.
Yeah. I don't know. So this one,
I I don't feel like there's been, and the reason why we wanted to have you on again, Amy, is one, you're a friend, but also two, is that I don't think, when people say, oh, aren't we glad we're not in this industry? And the industries that get hit are the hospitality industries,
right?
Hotel, restaurants, things like that. But we don't really put a face or a name to it. I was watching this documentary on HBO, and it was about Wolfgang Puck's catering service. And he's opening up all these, he does events and things like that. And one of his events was a tennis tournament right before COVID. And then, we had to stop our catering service.
Right.
And it's not just that the restaurant's in trouble. It's you got the 100 waiters, the servers, the cooks, boom, immediately. And yeah, they could go work at Amazon for, $10 an hour, but that's not what they do for a living.
That's not what they do. Right. So it's frustrating sometimes that the stuff that people are commenting on, and they kind of expect everyone in the industry to just drop what they're doing and then go start doing something totally different, which is very hard to do. I feel like if we had asked them to do the same thing, they would be probably offended too. But the industry as a whole, everyone I know in it is just a very resilient type of individual.
You have to be.
You have to be, just because you're working with so many people. So when this kind of stuff gets thrown at them all the time, we're always willing to adapt. On a Saturday night, you have a nice quiet evening. Maybe somebody didn't show up. You have a 20 top walk in. You have to immediately adapt. Yeah. So this is obviously on a much larger scale, but we are bred to just, what are we doing now? Change a plan. Got to try something new. We're creative. We don't really get offended that easy.
I like the attitude. You got to admit. I mean, you could have, the pity party, but what's the point?
Right.
No,
you'll fail.
I saw some restaurants, other businesses we've talked about on the podcast before, that I use the term like turtled up. Like they basically just like tried to weather the storm. And then you kind of relied on certain things like unemployment and then the PPE loans and all this stuff. And that was what got them through to a point.
Yeah.
But the mental state
of tough.
The employees,
it's tough.
We talked about it a lot on here, and we did that with the tinderbox as well. It's like you just kept going.
Yeah,
you just kept going. You got creative, and all of a sudden, it's just it was more. I felt, and
the strong will survive type deal.
You have no choice. It's either you give it everything you have. I mean, this is just in life, but it's the same thing. You give it everything you have to a point that if you fail, you did everything you could to get to that point.
Right.
The other way is what I saw a lot of people doing, a lot of the businesses that I'm actually close to, they just fucking, and some of them made it. They just, buckled down, and they were just like, not in the way of like putting the effort in. They literally just put up the boards, if you will. Right. And they just like weathered the storm that way and waited for it to pass.
But we're at a year. You can't, who can wait a year? You can't do it.
That's why 100,000, six figures of restaurants and bars that will not come back.
Right.
They will not come back to the United States, and more are going to be closing.
In November, I talked about the protests down at the State House, and I remember watching the news that they were shutting down after 10 o'clock, and just that extra hit. We've been shut down for almost 4 months. You reopen, you're at a fraction of the capacity. You have all these rules. A lot of people have lost they've lost family members, so they're already a little bit down. Yeah. You are losing money. You have all these new things you have to adapt to. And then we got hit again with, now you can't be open after 10. And I remember sitting there and just, what's next? And I remember I'm done being sad.
You feel targeted.
Yeah. But it's, because you feel targeted, you're angry.
Yeah.
So every other restaurant, bar owner that I know, we're just kind of mad, and we're really, really tired. So I was mad at this point, because here we go again. Like, when is it going to stop? And I remember I called my business partner. Just, you can imagine how that phone call went.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Right.
What's new?
Right. And I remember him just, Amy, I don't want to hear. You want to do something about it? Go down to the State House.
Yeah.
And I was just, okay, whatever. And I was just still cursing in the back, And I was so angry. I remember I had the tears in my eyes, just like, when is this going to stop? And then I made a couple phone calls, and then Elton called me from Prohibition again. Yep. And, we decided we are going to go down to the State House. Why not? Why can't two super really small establishments without a bunch of huge backs?
He's a lot taller than you.
Most of them are
establishments.
Why can't we go down and do something that big? You know, it doesn't have to be the Cameron Mitchells that go down and speak. Like,
It doesn't
can
have
be
to be
us.
aggressive or anything like that. You
It
can
was.
just okay. I tried to help you out.
But
It was.
you hope that, you know, in that effort that you might have some of the big boys
Right.
follow. They're taking it from a different approach because of the way they're connected, right? I mean, that's just what, I mean, they use like lobbyists and all that stuff. They know
I called in all my favors for that one. But you get to that point where that's that mentality. You want something to change, go do something about it. So the industry,
that statement there is such an important one this last year.
Right. So we did, and a lot of people did in the industry. You know, they fought. They have been out there. Anything that's in the high street area, they've been hit so many times.
Oh my gosh, Short North's a different place now than it was even a year ago.
And they're not sad anymore. They're hopping right back up every single time.
Yeah.
And it's encouraging to see. It's encouraging for me to see it because I won't stop. They're fighting. I need to fight too. Everybody, we just need to keep going. And the industry as a whole is just really, really just a get up and fight kind of a people.
Well, I think a lot of them are going to be those smaller businesses like yourself, right? So this is a livelihood. We've kind of transitioned here, and I'm ready for the next one here because I didn't pour as much as you guys did. Now I'm ahead of the game.
Oh, I'm still number one.
You are? Oh, yeah. Well, let's have her talk about that. Wait. Microphone. We got Brian here, who you are, what, 2 weeks out from being on here?
A personal trainer, by the way, gentlemen.
Just out of curiosity, am I good? Do you think it developed more of like a camaraderie within the industry?
Absolutely.
It had to.
Yeah. Nobody's competing against each other anymore. You're competing against the rules, COVID itself, an illness.
Yourself.
Survival.
Competing against yourself.
Survival in multiple ways, right?
No, everybody is, when they say we're in this together, they really, I mean, we are. You want to pair up with your competitor. You know, there's a bunch of people that are around me specifically that we've talked, and I know these people, and these people used to be my competition, but like we will fight with them now. And now it is, the whole mentality is, I don't want you to fail either. If everybody else fails, you start seeing these places go out, it's not going to be us. It's not going to be you. It's not going to be me.
And you guys have done stuff on social media where you've kind of been posting stuff together. Hey, go try my place, go try his place, stuff like that. It's commendable. And there was no training manual for this. You guys just did this.
No, yeah, there's
I mean, this is true entrepreneur.
But we call each other too. I've noticed that I talk to a lot of these people almost once a week on, here's a new regulation. What are you doing for it?
Yeah.
And if I can get a good idea off of you to stay open and vice versa, like, why wouldn't we do that?
We talked about this. I want to say it was probably spring, summer, where, you know, when things were closed for a lot of the businesses and then also with the restaurants, and they were talking about the differences of people ordering through Uber Eats or DoorDash and all this, or do you go carry it out? Yes, you help the restaurants to a point survive by doing the Uber Eats and all that stuff, but to truly support and give a tip to the restaurant, which again, there's a dichotomy there. Like, do you want to support the other aspect of it where you want to have the delivery, which has gotten so big? But I mean, that was something that I did was, you know, I would go to restaurants that we had frequented to get carry out and then give a tip to the restaurant and go do all that stuff. So they get the full benefit of that.
The delivery services, they take such a huge percentage that it's nice, sure, but it's really not as helpful as it should be, could be, would like to be. Any of that?
I don't think they like to be.
It's supposed to be supplemental to your normal business.
And it is not. It absolutely is not.
But I'm saying, like, when you had a full restaurant and then you have like this DoorDash come in or whatever, I'm not talking bad about DoorDash, but you have one of these services come in, you're like, oh, this is just supplemental. Like, we're not going to make our full nut on this, but it's like, we'll get a little bit more, we'll get the food out, whatever, and all this stuff. And at the same time, we're doing so it's just on top, supplemental. It's on top.
So restaurants in general, they don't plan to make their money off any kind of to-go. You can't. That's not how they're set up.
You make a lot of money on beverages too, I'm assuming.
Right. So with some of the loopholes with drinks to go, that worked really well in the beginning too. But when you can just go to the liquor store and make your own cocktail for less, 3 times as strong, like that's what people are doing.
Yeah.
So it works really well when they want to be supportive, but also these other people that are trying to come support you, they're also getting hit on their financials. They're losing jobs. They're working for less. They're working from home. They have more expenses. Their kids at home all the time.
They have questions about what's going to happen too. Like you guys did.
So they're also conservative. And so at first, when they just wanted to throw money to help every establishment that they normally frequent, I mean, that only lasts so long. You can't support places.
Have you heard of the app Slice at all?
No.
So Slice is a newer app, probably in the last year, and it's all for local pizza places.
Okay.
So instead of the Papa John's, the Donato's, all those types of things, it's for local pizza places, and their goal is that more, just like you mentioned earlier, more people are doing more comfort food.
Yeah.
So more people are ordering pizza than ever before, and they're pairing up with all these local establishments that don't have the same websites and things like that, and they're doing that app so that the pizza places can become whole. But is it 30% that Uber Eats takes from you? Is
Somewhere around there. Yeah. We don't.
Plus the tips.
I'm real like, no.
It's fine.
No, plus the tips.
Right.
Like you tip.
Right.
It's not going to the restaurant.
So we can't control how it shows up. We can't control how long it takes you to get there. We can't control when you show up to pick it up. We can't control how fast you're driving and if it slips over in the car. Like there's a bit that we can't control. And pizza places are set up to do delivery and to go. That is how they make their money before
part of the
COVID.
industry already.
So they are thriving. They're doing very well. Most of them, not all of them, but the majority of them, I think, are doing really, really well, because that's how they're set up. So the places, the types of businesses that are doing that before this, unless you adapt to do that as well, which means get rid of your dining room and enlarge your kitchen and don't have servers and only have cooks. That's the only way you could do that.
Or be like a ghost restaurant and just
there. You see how many of those are popping up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get to that next bottle here as we talk about this.
All right, Steve getting a little.
No. We're still.
What did you think of the second one?
We talked about it, but I liked it. I thought it was it wasn't as sweet. Definitely more heat. Yeah.
So this one is a barrel proof.
The first one, I'll say that out of the two, just because of the
sweetness of it and the level.
Sweetness, the caramel, the stuff we talked about, butterscotch, everything else. It was a little bit more enjoyable as a sipper. But again, yeah.
So this one's described as heavy and light.
Heavy and light.
Heavy and light.
That makes
do you want to read the proof and the
jumbo shrimp?
Jumbo shrimp. So this is 12 years, just bourbon, ex-bourbon barrels.
Still Foursquare though, right?
It is Foursquare, and I am not going to say that name.
Give it a go.
Plenty Pot and Ciario.
Use that voice for good, man. Just really
I nailed it. You guys don't know how to say it.
No one does.
I just did. So this is 120 proof and 12 years in the tropics, it says, and it says one of 6,000 bottles.
So the tropics too kind of aid in this. I mean, how humid and how warm it is down there.
Yeah.
Definitely aid in how it ages in the barrel. We know with bourbon that when it gets cold, it shrinks up. When it gets warm, it gets bigger.
Let's get light.
Heavy and light.
Not so much unlike the crew that's sitting with me now.
Hey,
oh!
Shout out to the crowd there.
But
A lot.
Go on.
okay, so so with it being so warm, it really affects the aging process because the barrel is warmer. It's expanded, all the time.
Does it evaporate more or less because
okay, so this on average, especially with the
I guess how many bottles would you get?
The exceptional
less
series
bottles from a
way
barrel?
less. So anything that's the exceptional series is the one I told you about it. That it was a once released kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Since it's so hot down there, you are losing so much of it. It's not an angel share. They call it something else. It's like a weird ghost something. Starts with a D.
But
I read it earlier.
It's similar, right? Because you don't have the seasons. You don't have the cold seasons like we do in Kentucky.
40 to 80% of the barrel.
And if they're aging for 14 years or 12 years, then they're really committed to it.
No, 4 to 8% a year. There we go. So at 10 years, that's 40 to 80% of the barrel.
I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but what does a bourbon lose a year?
It varies because we have that constant.
That's good though.
Okay.
This is nice.
This
is totally different.
They're a little more consistent with their
I think this is
temperature
very
down there.
bright almost. I don't know if it's just because you said tropical, but very bright tasting. Yeah.
Well, that's the heavy and light.
Yeah.
Wait, which one are you on the third one?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to keep track.
So
it is lighter. It's
I think
brighter.
the third one, it's
spicier too. It's clovey.
We didn't know what you said.
I would like for you to post that online and see if anyone can pronounce that.
Someone type this out, if you will, Nate.
Yeah.
If you grab the bottle and just type it into
if anyone's
the
listening,
comment feed there.
PLENIPOTENZIARI.
They're not keeping up already.
Plenty.
Nope.
Pot
Nope.
and Zario. I killed it.
I feel like you finished strong.
Yeah, heavy. Started light.
It's heavy and light.
You
Go
know,
on.
this one's interesting because it's a different rum than I've ever tasted before, and most of the rums I've ever had have actually been through Amy or through people not necessarily at a bar. And this one, to have the brightness of it, it's almost, I don't want to say like I guess there's a minty, citrusy, pineapple-y. It could
There's
just
not
be
much
that
in there, so take it light.
the
there,
name
guys.
of tropical has me maybe thinking pineapple. That's kind of
it
where I'm
finishes
thinking.
like that. It's clovey right at the front,
Clovey,
but it
yeah,
finishes so
yeah.
much lighter than the
a
other
lot
two.
less caramel than the other
Yeah.
two and things like that.
Totally different drink.
Totally different
Going
drink.
off the heavy and light.
And
thing.
what would
Got
you
it.
say? You think something like that's about $100 a bottle too?
I think all of them are somewhere around there.
So what type of
Isn't it so different?
rums do you have at McClellan's? Are they things similar to these?
No.
No. Okay.
There's nothing available, in my opinion, like this to
trying,
the Ohio. I mean, what's available in Ohio and most states, there's nothing really that unique. I mean,
No.
there's a lot of good rums available in the United States, but not necessarily like this.
Right. So this would
Readily
be
available.
a great thing to start asking the state for. Just saying, if anybody out there is got Jim Knappa's ear,
Yeah,
this would
send
be a
some
nice
tweets
one.
out.
Yeah. This would be a lovely.
Let's go to the State House.
Let's go to State House just for rum.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing here? We
Rum.
want rum.
Rum.
We want rum.
Go home.
Yeah. The police are on their way. Okay. All right. Jesus. What, Spencer?
I don't know if they don't know that they're not on the mic.
They do know. They just don't care. This is interesting because this is all coming from the same distillery, and they're very, very unique. So I think you're spot on there, Amy. As far as this is something that would be fun to see. You would see maybe not the following as the bourbon craze, right? But it would be something that it might catch on, that some of these smaller releases, like this is one of 6,000 bottles.
Yeah.
I don't know how you allocate that in the United States.
I think
when it's not in the United
yeah.
States. And again, I don't know how things are necessarily working. I don't know if this was I didn't look at the back, if this was another like UK bottle or whatever. But there's an aspect to this is that if you had, say, just a 6,000 bottle release in the United States, and it had a fraction of the craze of the bourbon world.
Well, I mean,
you would create, sadly, in my opinion, a secondary market that would just skyrocket this,
That's
and then all of a
exactly what I
sudden
was
you
gonna
wouldn't
say.
be able to get this bottle. That's
No.
that.
Well,
So you'd have to go to a place like McClellan.
The OFC that came out this year, there's 1,085 bottles.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. I mean, this
think,
is 6
yeah,
times that amount.
The,
I think
the
it'd
rarity
be,
of it.
it'd be huge. I think that the craze there would be definitely something that people would be looking for, and they'd love to say they have it, and they'd love to try it with their friends, and it'd be great.
Being the Bourbon and BS podcast, I'm not going to say, like we kind of joked about earlier, I'm not tired of the bourbons and everything like that, but you do it for so long, it's fun to try new ones. But unless you're flipping bottles or you're just building a collection, I've gotten to the point where it's like I enjoy trying the new ones, especially on the podcast. I enjoy having different ones in the bar. I'm not seeking stuff out or spending as much of my disposable income after this year. Especially, now that things are, as they say, getting back to normal a little bit. You want to get out. You have less disposable income just because you're sitting at home, like a lot of people did this last 10 months. I'm not necessarily going to be craving or going out to be like, oh, this bottle is $100 or $200. I got to make sure I have
But
this.
here's the thing: rum
This
is
is
more
new.
rum is more affordable than bourbon.
Typically,
But
Yeah.
not this
but a
style.
good tequila, a good rum,
Well,
like
$100 bourbon. I would take this $100 bottle of rum versus a lot of $100 bottles
Yeah.
of bourbon out there. I really would. I mean, to get a 14-year.
Why do you say that though?
Well, to get a 14-year bottle of bourbon for $100 at cash strength is a tough task right now.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm going with it. And to have something unique that's almost, are we calling this small batch? Or are we calling this single barrel? I mean,
Small
but
batch.
having something
Yeah.
unique that 6,000 bottles. I mean, that's unique to
It
have
is
at
unique.
120 proof.
It is unique.
That's a 14-year rum. That's tough to get for $100. I'm sure some of the best rums are probably $200, maybe $300. I'm sure there's some outstanding ones out there, but I think if you want something unique and you have some disposable income, that's where to go.
Again, I think it's something new. I mean, that's how these trends work, right? I
Yeah.
mean, again, like a place like McClellan's Pub in Columbus, Ohio, this is something that you come in and someone that's tried a bunch of bourbons, like you still have a lot of whiskeys that maybe even some of the more enthusiast people come in and they're surprised you have this bottle available.
Top
Right.
3 collections in the city. Not even close. Not even close.
But point being is that you might say, okay, you've had this, you had this. Like, are you into rums?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, not really. I haven't really had many, sippers, and you're like, well, try this. This was finished in, the bourbon barrels. It was finished in the bourbon and sherry.
I'll call them connoisseurs that come in constantly. They when they sit down, they'll just say, what do you have that's new? They just want something new.
I mean,
they
that's us all day.
The cigar industry is the same way.
Okay. So it's something you could sell them on that they've never had, that would be something they're looking for, that would still fit the palette, the profile that they're looking for. They're just constantly open to these new things, and I really think this is something that would be great to do that with, to be constantly entertaining people. I mean, I feel like I
think you have an open market at this point with a lot of the rums.
Yeah.
Because there are some good ones that are available in the United States, but again, this is something that has not been tapped into necessarily, but it's been tapped into in the other spirits.
But there are rum bars that have popped up.
Sure.
Yeah. So
not as much in the Midwest. I mean, this is more of I think rums are known for warmer climates. You know what I mean? Like that's
Carolinas, Florida, stuff
Carolinas,
like
Florida.
We're behind a little bit anyway with a lot of things.
What's that?
Yeah, but Columbus,
some of the trends with how we get this stuff.
If it works here in Columbus, it'll work anywhere.
I'm just talking about like releases. I mean, like when you have things released, with bourbons especially, they always get released in Kentucky. They get released in a lot of the open states first. And we are one of the later ones to get it. We really do well with them once they're here. But I feel like this would be one of those things too, that even though they have rum bars, like we're not quite there because of availability.
Right.
Fair enough.
But we're the kind of place too that with everything else that's kind of working, I think it would do really well.
I agree.
I think there's an opportunity. Like I said, I will say again, I think a lot of people, especially in the Midwest or the colder climates, right? They think of rum drinks as the umbrella drinks. They think of the vacations. They don't think of this.
Right.
Tiki bars, as Nate said, you don't necessarily think you're going to be on a beach and you're going to be drinking a 120 proof sipper.
Oh, goodness.
Right. I mean, so this is a different one point is that this is a different aspect of that industry.
Right.
That does relate more to the bourbon side of it. It's something that it's very relatable to what we're doing already as far as your industry, the whiskey and the bourbon industry. This is an untapped market to the majority of, I think, colder areas of the United States and beyond.
So what I'm hearing from you is that you would like to pair up and open a rum bar that sells cigars, and we could pair them together. Is that what I'm hearing you say, Steve?
Absolutely, right there on the beach in Lake Erie.
No, I think in Ohio, like this is an untapped market.
Yeah, you come up with the finances, I will absolutely help out.
I think if you have the right bartender and the right person with knowledge that can sell cigars, these will go extremely well with any type of cigar. No, Indiana and stuff like that has more legal where you can drink it, but I think this goes well with any type of cigar. I really feel that.
All right, with part one, we can stretch this out. We have not tapped into it. There's one more bottle, correct?
Dose.
No, we already did this one.
Just that one.
So the 2008 here. Well, we have that one.
That's just to
sip on here. So, with this, let's kind of get into a little bit of the ratings. So I have it still up there. The classic thing, rating time, whiskey, cigar, and the pairing. We're drinking the different rums from Foursquare. This is based out of Barbados, and we can't get it in the United States at all.
I think you can get it some states, but you can't get it in Ohio.
You can't get it in Ohio, that's for sure. But if you can find Foursquare rums in your home state, definitely check them out, especially these small batches. Do they have a regular release? Do you know? We don't know.
I don't know because I can't order them.
Okay. But this distillery is obviously putting out some top end,
some award-winning.
Yeah, award-winning.
Award-winning.
Won a blue ribbon. So
did Pap.
I know, PBR, man. Won a blue ribbon. It's right there on the can. But with that being said, rate the cigar out of 10, and then kind of what we've had so far, the 3. We've already done that one. That was the first one.
We know that 2005 there. Yeah. 8.
Spencer, I'm sorry. It's like a seashell game. You know what I mean? Like Anyways, yeah, go ahead, Amy. Rate the cigar. You've gotten into it a little bit now.
I think it pairs really well with. I like it because it's been different than what you have given me for the other podcasts.
You're typically, based on my experience, mild to medium.
Yes.
This is more on that medium.
It's not. It's more on a medium, but it has a different flavor than some. I do a lot of Connecticut's.
Yes.
And
really?
And this one has a right in the middle. I'm tasting something right in that inhale. That's definitely different. I'm enjoying it. It's not overpowering. I really hate when somebody brings in a cigar and it's so overpowering you can't taste your drink. And I think this is really complimentary, where I can enjoy this and I can get the flavor, but I can go back to this and I can kind of go back and forth. I think this is a great, fantastic pairing.
Good. Out of 10?
I would say 11. Absolutely. You. It's like you've done this before. It's so weird.
Yeah. Rum's sinking in. Spencer, how about you? You poured the last of the 4 bottles here.
Yeah. So do you want to start with cigars or with the
go with the cigar and then the kind of the pairing? Kind of again, I mean, I think overall doing 4 different samples of the different rums, it's tough to give a 10, out of 10 rating, I think, on the individual one. So tonight, I think let's go with the out of 10 for the cigar, and then also out of 10 with kind of how it all kind of went together.
So cigar itself, I'm going to go an 8. There's it smokes incredibly well and has a wonderful draw. What percentage would you say the taste of a cigar comes from the wrapper?
So there's conflicting stories on that, I think, or opinions on that. It's tough.
Is it 50%? Is it 60%? Is it 20%?
So
on something like this, what percentage would you say?
See, I'm of the opinion that it's actually less than 50% for sure.
So there's a taste to this that doesn't agree with my palate. I don't know why, but there's a funk. There's some spices that just don't. Yeah, for me personally. So for me, I'm going to go an 8. I think the filler is fantastic. Maybe it's the wrapper that's just not for me, but I think it's a very well constructed cigar. I think it tastes great, but there's some flavor that I think Amy was pointing to that I just can't put my finger on.
It does come from the wrapper. The flavor does. I feel there's a flavor in it.
On this one, I think you are getting a unique flavor from the Ecuadorian.
So I feel like that's the right thing. So it's a unique flavor. So on the cigar, I'm gonna go with an 8. On the rums themselves, I mean the first 2 that I tried were of rums that I have are 9 or 9.5s, and I am a tough grader. So to have a rums that taste like that have the essence of caramel, which I like.
Yeah.
I've always asked, hey, do you have something that tastes like butterscotch? Not like schnapps or anything like that.
Werther's.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to have even the essence of that is phenomenal. Pairing, I'm going to go with a 8 or an 8 point. I'll go 8.3 on the pairing because there's
very specific.
There's specific variations. The cigar stands alone.
Yeah.
And I feel like the cigar will stand up to anything and it will have its own unique flavor. So that's where I'm going with that, where I feel like I can still taste every aspect of the cigar.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like these rums are meant to be with cigars. So that's why I'm going 8.3 with everything. I would like to thank Amy for bringing these to us.
Absolutely.
I would like to thank you for bringing this cigar. And I think that they all stand up by themselves. And I do think that they pair well, but you can definitely taste the difference, which you can't always do with some of the bourbons that we've had over the years.
Yeah, so I will agree with you on the fact that, and I love the fact that you brought the point that rums go well with cigars. I mean, this is a more of a native type of a pairing based on the way that they're made in those areas and from the same climates and the same crops, if you will, like the sugarcane and all that. I mean, it's different. It's not the corn, the rye, not the barley. It's not any of that stuff.
These go better. I really do.
I think that's part of the opportunity that we're talking about as far as if you have the rum bars, if you have all that stuff. I mean, you can definitely target, especially some of the high tourists, like a Vegas, like a Florida, like, some of these Carolinas. You have an opportunity to get not necessarily a rum bar, but you roll with that trend to the fact that you introduce a more rum pages of the drink and cocktail menu. I think we've gotten to that point where it's like, what cocktail? We've gotten full circle back to the old fashioned, the Manhattans and stuff like that. That's like a steakhouse or cigars. And
it would be interesting if you took the same bourbon cocktails and just subbed them out with a nice full-bodied rum.
Too sweet with like a Manhattan?
These no, I like a sweet Manhattan.
Okay.
I think throw a couple bitters in it, more specific bitters, like a
not Agostina.
Not like almost like a flavored bitters in it. Like
Mhm.
we've had some that have a really great walnut,
Yeah.
almonds. I think almond would be really nice with this. But they have a lot of fruit ones too. They have fruit bitters where it's still really bitter, but there's a little flip to it that I think that some of those that don't necessarily go well with bourbon would really go well with these. And I'd love to try a Manhattan or an old fashioned with a different kind of bitter.
So what I was getting to though, sorry, Spencer, what I was getting to is the fact that the reason that I think a lot of the whiskey, even though we have all these amazing bourbons and amazing whiskeys available now, you go to a high-end restaurant or even a mid-grade restaurant and bar, you see the old fashions back, you see the Manhattans back, and they go really well with cigars. And I think the reason that no one really talks about is because you've sweetened things up again.
Right.
Where with the rums, you carry that inherent sweetness a lot of times with them.
Yeah.
So therefore, it goes back to what we've been talking about tonight, is that it pairs really well together. Where you have to with whiskeys, it pairs well, but I think it absolutely a lot of cigars pair very well with those sweeter whiskey cocktails. I'm not talking like whiskey sours or any of that stuff, like really, really, really sweet or sour. It's those, just add that extra sweetness that the typical bourbons aren't going to carry with them. Then you really enjoy that cigar with a cocktail. You're like, man, this is really good together.
Would you agree that like maybe not to go, well, fuck it, I'll go sexist. That some women that are not into bourbon would start off with this?
No, because I think this has as much flavor and spice and kick as some of those foolproof bourbons, that this would not necessarily.
So this is not a entry into the bourbon world with something like this.
I would say no. I think this is
a standalone category.
I do. Yeah. I think it would be an advanced rum rather than an entry to anything.
Fair enough.
I think if you want to do an entry, you would start with the other ones that we have readily available and kind of go from there.
Got it. With the rums?
With the rums, yeah.
I would say, what we've had on here before, like some of the Ron Zaccapas, you have the Zayas, things that are readily available, or the Diplomatico. We've had the Reserva.
Where do these compare to some of the rums you've had on the podcast? I'm not saying one's better or worse.
So these are and I haven't had the last one. I just poured a little bit of that 2008 bottle, which we need to touch on real quick as we go. We'll touch on that as we get into part two. But I will say that they compare to, if I had the opportunity for a small batch or what we call like single barrel for whiskeys, this is kind of that next level, cask strength.
Yeah.
Which you don't see. Nate, what do you want to say there? And then I'll get to rating eventually before we wrap up.
In terms of the rum, like I would compare this more to back in December when Miguel was on, we had the Florida Caña 12-year, because just like with the Florida Caña and these, there's no additional sweeteners added after the fact. What's in the bottle is how it's been blended and what's coming out of the barrels.
Right.
Whereas some of the other ones we've had, like say Diplomatico or Zacapa, those have sweeteners added after it's been distilled and after it's coming out of the barrel.
Right.
That's why those tend to taste a little
because they're younger. And that's why do they add?
No, like the Zacapa 23, the youngest rum in that is a 23-year rum, but that's just what those companies do.
Part of the process.
So when Miguel was on last time, he said, Zacapa and Diplomatico, those are two of the more popular rums for like the U.S. market because they're so sweet. But if you go onto like some hardcore rum pages, like those are two of the more dogged brands because they're adding sweetness after the fact.
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah. Cigar, I'm going to give I'm right there, kind of like a 8.5. I think this is a solid cigar. The construction's great. My father always puts out great products, and Ashton teams up with, like I mentioned earlier, they team up with fantastic companies. So this is one medium plus maybe. But again, I think to Spencer's point, you're going to have to want to like the profile, right?
It tastes very differently as you get towards the end of it. Yeah. Very, very differently.
Well, you got to keep in mind, though, you haven't smoked a cigar on its own. Like we've had 4 different bottles. It's always an aspect of this, is that when we're doing the pairing, I think part of the reason I picked this cigar for tonight is because I didn't know what we were drinking necessarily through the different samples. I knew that essentially kind of because we talked about it, but I tried to pick one that I think that the cigar has actually held up to, but also has changed a little bit as I've tried these. So I always get back to the point that if you're smoking the cigar on its own, that's the true rating. If you're drinking one of these, or if we did just a sampling of the 4 of them without a cigar, we would have a different experience. So this whole thing is not something that I think basically anyone out there could probably duplicate based on their selection of rums and the cigar. So you're not going to get necessarily a pure rating of just the cigar or just one of these pours, because you have all of this stuff going in together, right? You know, it's just like,
do you smoke this one by itself?
I have, yeah.
And
that's what I'm saying. I think an 8.5 on its own. That's based on that. I think it's great construction. I think it's a great flavor. If you like it, it's not going to be very unique necessarily to a lot of cigar smokers, but it is a very good staple cigar if you're looking for a medium bodied with an Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper. As far as the pairing, I think it held up. I think these bottles are fantastic. I would give this a 9 pairing. Now that I've had these, probably could go through a selection of cigars and maybe pick out something maybe a little bit more complementary to it, maybe have a little bit more sweetness to the tobacco that might actually pair a little bit better with that. Going back to that whole Cuban market that we talked about, that was one of the nice things being down there, is that you're drinking some Cuban rums with some Cuban tobacco, which I think carries not necessarily as much sweetness, a little bit of sweetness, but almost like a little bit of saltiness as well. So then you have those different flavors.
Where does a Cuban rum taste compared to any of these?
So I haven't had any, to my knowledge, I haven't had any Cuban rums that have been this high of proof. But you're dealing with that boldness that you don't get on what we've talked about, the typical rums that we have in the United States.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a little bit more boldness with some of those, and it's interesting because there are some like the Havana Club, the Maestros de Grupos, the Blue Label. Havana Club, you've got, I think it is a bourbon finished. There's more oakiness to it, which is why I think I gravitate to that bottle, is because it does have a little bit of that familiarity to it versus some of the others. But we had some Ron Santiago that was fantastic, and it was not a very expensive bottle at all. I mean, you're looking at, I think it was like $20 equivalent. I mean, that's the difference down there, is that it's not necessarily these high end prices that we're used to. So, and again, I don't know. Again, these being small batches, you're going to carry a higher price tag. Being, you know, like that one that we can't say, third bottle, it's 1 out of 6,000 bottles that they made. I mean, you're going to carry a higher price tag if there's a market for it. So, with that being said, let's kind of wrap up part 1, and then we'll talk a little bit about the 2008 bottle. But I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank Amy for being here. I want to thank Spencer for being here, and also Tinderbox at Easton for the San Cristobal Revelation. And also Altadis USA. We got a Reserva Real Romeo Julieta in the spirit of Valentine's Day coming up. And also Be a Cigar Company for the gold and silver. They're available now. Just contact the podcast, Be a Cigar Company, or also Tinderbox at Easton. We can get those out to you. Try them. Anytime you order 10 or more BS, you're going to get 10% off. So that's a special for you as well. And then also patreon.com. Thank all of you guys that are supporting the podcast with a little bit of contribution. It helps us do this. This is kind of a side project, and it helps with everything, with the technology and everything else, and getting it out there to you guys. So share, like, and enjoy. I know, Spencer, you typically listen to just the audio, correct?
On 2-speed, because your voice just really bangs my car. It's fantastic. The bass just really gets
turn up that bass. Yeah, get that subwoofer in the seat. All right, guys. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Thanks for part 1. Looking forward to having a little sip of this here, the 2008 bottle that we've got. And for those listening on the live every Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m.-ish Eastern Standard Time, stay tuned for part 2, which is going to be a good conversation, I think, going into tonight here. So thank you very much. Enjoy your week.
You don't do the music?
It's not live.
Yeah. Might use the lavatory. You need a restroom?
I don't think so yet.
Okay. Sorry.
I thought it was kind of interesting with this cigar. So,
ooh, that's good.
It's the same type of wrapper as the cigar from last week, the Leaf by Oscar Sumatra.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's Ecuadorian Sumatra, but this one, the rest of the cigar is Nicaraguan,
as opposed to Honduran.
Whereas as opposed to Honduran,
No.
so the Leaf
Got my heat pad.
had a little bit more of that sweetness to it, but I got a lot of spice on the retrohale of that cigar. This one, having so much Nicaraguan tobacco in the filler and binder, I get more spice on the palate, but less spice in the retrohale as I did the Leaf.
Okay.
So I get this one, the spice is on the palate, not as much on the retrohale. the leaf, no spice on the palate, but on the retro.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. You have two cigars, same exact wrapper, but they taste a little bit different the way they come across the palate because of the rest of the makeup of the cigar.
Yeah. Well, you have to factor in the fact that you've got Ecuadorian Sumatra, but you don't know which farm and which leaf and all that stuff. So there are some variables there, but I get what you're saying. Absolutely.
I do like a steady turn, and I think with the shape of it, it's not my favorite.
You want like a box press? It's interesting.
Oh, you give it a good douche canoe, really nice.
I'm good. If you guys need a vent, you can go ahead.
You had I think the first one that we had.
The only one we haven't had.
For those that are listening out there during the intermission, please share, like. We're going to get started part 2. It is Say What You Mean, Do What You Say. When I messaged that to Amy, she said she's good at part of that. I feel like it's the mean what you say.
Oh, yeah, I mean it.
Wouldn't expect anything else.
I know. It's my finest quality.
I tell you what, let's not kill these bottles if you want to get in the mictors here. I don't want to kill any of these.
I mentioned this to him. He said there's more.
Okay.
He's great.
He's great. Sean's putting his crotch right there on the fire. That's good.
There's a little. That one's spitting off some stuff. Oh,
yeah.
No, just. Maybe we can leave them off so they can see what they are.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I brought this one to kill. So.
There you go.
Kill it.
Leave the 2008 one. Yeah, I want to see this one here.
Yeah, I want to taste that one again.
This is all ex-bourbon cask. 12-year.
So I got a bunch of 2005s coming.
Okay.
Real excited. Real excited.
Yeah, this one's very specific where it's 2008 single blended rum. So that's essentially a single barrel. And this is going to be that pot and column blend as they talked about. Yeah,
I think it's interesting when they call it a blend. When we call it a blend, well, I'll wait till we're back on to mention that.
Yeah.
But I'd like to mention that. I think it's.
Well, it's kind of like when we had.
Yeah, of course.
When we had Legion on, I mentioned it a little bit there. Like when we talk about whiskey and bourbon in the U.S.
Yeah.
Like we're always looking at the master distiller as the king of that, but in other industries and other countries, it's the blender.
They can't hear you, by the way, if anyone's listening.
The blender. But this is the part that gets cut out anyway.
They're listening now, though.
How much time do we have?
Go ahead.
Right.
It's the intermission.
Intermission.
So for those listening, I do want to say coming up on the upcoming weeks, we've got next week, I've got Cedar Creek Cigars coming on. So we're going to have a little bit more cigar heavy on the part 1. And then the following week to end up February. You guys can keep, hey, guys, Spencer, can we act like we're still live? So just keep it down a little bit. And then we got Brian Penn, who's actually in the studio audience. He's going to be on the 24th. And that's basically where we're at. And we've got some other ones coming up in March, but we'll kind of keep that quiet here for now. Thank you. That feels really good.
We'll do some traps at some point.
All right. I'll teach you.
Just a couple shrugs will do it.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Do you think the Reserve Real is going to pair better with some of these rums?
No, I don't. So Nate asked if the Reserve Real is going to pair better. I think it would be overpowered by some of these cast strength, the rums.
Is that more
honestly.
mild, more medium?
It is mild. Yeah, it is mild.
It's got a little bit of Nicaraguan in it.
I think it would do well with the mictors.
What is the flavor I'm looking
brought.
for when you say everyone seems? I shouldn't say everyone. A lot of people like Nicaraguan tobacco. What is the tendencies of Nicaraguan tobacco here?
So Nicaraguan tobacco, because of the volcanic soil in the 4 regions of Nicaragua that they grow the tobacco, typically you're going to get more spice notes from Nicaraguan tobacco. So like for me personally, I get more spice from Nicaraguan leaves. I get a little bit more sweetness from Hondurans, and I just get mild and creamier notes from Dominican.
So what type of wrappers go well with a Nicaraguan?
Well, with a Nicaraguan, like in the filler and in binder, really they can blend it with anything. So
Nicaraguan pretty much goes well with anything. Honduran's going to be a little sweeter.
It's going to be a little bit different. Like the Monte Cristo White Series, that's an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper. So you get the mild and creaminess of that wrapper leaf, but the binder's Nicaraguan, and then there's Dominican and Nicaraguan in the filler. But that cigar really doesn't have any spice to it, even though there's a decent amount of Nicaraguan tobacco in that. The flavor profile of that particular cigar is so powered by that Ecuadorian Connecticut that's what, for me at least, that's why I think that White Series is such a smooth, creamy smoke.
Monte Cristo White?
Monte Cristo White.
I mean, that's my favorite. I don't know why, but it's just my favorite.
When it comes to milder cigars that are under $20, like that is my go-to. But then I also look at, say, the CLE Chile. CLE Chile has got the exact same wrapper as the Monte Cristo White. It's an Ecuadorian Connecticut. But then the rest of that cigar is going to be Honduran. But it kind of tastes very similar to a White Series. But then you
think a CLA tastes similar to a white?
The Chile. The Chile.
Sure I've had that one.
It's the one with the blue band. Blue and silver on it.
I've not had that.
But then say something like Aroa's or the CLE Corojo. I get more sweetness out of that cigar. Kind of reminds me of some of the BS Golds. It's got a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of nuttiness to it.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the BS Gold, obviously.
No. But then, like a lot of your Dominican cigars, like say...
I like a silver. I don't know if that's like a faux pas, but I really like the silver. I know the Gold's the number one seller, but I really like a silver.
Yeah, if you like medium to full body cigars and you like cigars that have some pepper...
Yeah, I was going to say, it's got a little bit of pepper to it.
Yeah.
Actually, more than a little.
And that's the other thing. Like the Gold and the silver, they're both all Nicaraguan tobacco, but they both taste very, very different.
What's the binder on those?
It's all Nicaraguan.
And the
everything in both those cigars is all coming out of Nicaragua. But because they're using different seeds and they're using different leaves from different parts of the plant, different primings, the blend of those is why those two cigars taste so differently, even though they're all Nicaraguan tobacco in both.
Yeah, I don't. Does the silver have the same reputation as the Gold? I know everyone loves the Gold, but I like the silver.
I think one of the reasons the Gold seems to be more popular, it was the first. And with it being medium body, it appeals to more palates. With the silver being more medium to full, that's going to kind of narrow down who's going to enjoy that a little bit. And then with the amount of spice and pepper that the silver has, that's going to narrow it down even a little bit.
Are you a WWE or WWF fan at all?
No.
Sean? Jim the Anvil Neidhart? What's the end goal here with this?
With what?
No, the end goal here with this beard here.
So it's funny. There have been a couple times where I've actually just looked in the mirror and wanted to shave the beard off.
I'm not saying that's the move. I'm just curious what's the end goal.
But then people comment that they like the beard. So I'm like, oh, shit, I guess I'll keep it. But when I first started growing it.
What does the wifey say about it?
She's fine with it.
No,
but,
wait. I mean, fine is not.
That's it. Just
when I first started growing it, I was going to grow it during COVID. And then when I got back into the office.
COVID might last longer than we think.
Yeah. When I got back in the office, I'd keep it for like another month.
Yeah.
And then finally get rid of it.
So you're secure in your job.
All right.
It looks great. Just every time I see you, it's more pronounced.
It's growing.
It's growing.
This is what happens.
It grows slower as time goes.
Have you had to buy more products?
One.
All right. Are we done?
No.
Are you flirting, or I mean, do you want to touch it?
I could go second half on this topic if you want.
Right.
It looks great.
It's like a little bit of beard in me. I think.
I wish I had the.
You could.
I can't.
All right. Stop staring at it.
It's so good looking.
Maybe when we're done, he's had 4 more. You can go touch it. You know?
I'd like to touch. It's just like,
all right.
He's got a brush with him.
All right. Anyone listening
now?
There's
no way that's his brush. There's no way that's his brush.
It is his brush.
There's no way that's his brush.
If anyone's, if you guys want to share this, we're gonna get into part 2 here. So give me just a quick second here.
Is there anything special about this one?
Hey.
Go on.
Thanks. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 155, part 2. We just finished up part 1 with an intermission that lasted quite a while. We have had Spencer Lappin and also Amy Schirtzinger from McClellan's Pub here in the Columbus, Ohio area. She was so generous bringing these Foursquare is the distillery. It's different rums that unfortunately you can't get in most states, including Ohio, but we're trying to kind of promote it a little bit so that hopefully we can see it on the shelves in places like McClellan's and maybe even in your liquor stores here in Ohio and elsewhere. But the one that I'm actually about to sip on is the Foursquare 2008. This is a single blended rum, all ex-bourbon casks. And it even says it's 12 years. I mean, it's released April of 2020. So this is the fourth of the four that we have. I'm looking forward to trying that. I want to thank Tinderbox at Easton for sponsoring. We had the San Cristobal Revelation on part 1. Listen in there. We touched on it. We're a little bit more, I think, heavy on the kind of bar and restaurant industry as well as the rums. But we did touch on the cigar and also give it a rating and how it paired with all 3 that we had up until that point in part 1 of this episode. So check that out if you guys are just clicking on now. Go back or listen to the audio as well. Altus USA, we've got a Romeo Julieta Reserva Real. So that's going to be our second cigar of the night, which is a little bit milder. Not sure how it's going to pair. We've got a bottle of Michter's, what is it, straight bourbon?
Bourbon, yep.
Bourbon on there that Amy was also very generous to bring. So thank you very much, Amy, for all that.
Anytime.
And also Be a Cigar Company, the Gold and Silver. If you guys were listening live in the intermission, they were talking about it kind of towards the tail end of that, of the Gold and the Silver, all Nicaraguan and both of those cigars. They're available now. And just contact the podcast or also Tinderbox at Easton or Be a Cigar Company, and you can get some delivered to you, or if you're in the area, pick them up at the Tinderbox at Easton. They are exclusive there. And then patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. Check that out, guys. There's different tiers. You can contribute to the show if you're enjoying it. Share it, like it, review it, kind of keep it going on the podcast listener apps and also on Facebook Live and YouTube as well.
When are the new T-shirts coming out?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Oh, new T-shirts should hopefully be out by March, which means hopefully we will have an option being the St. Patty's Day green.
Are you adding an additional T-shirt that was not for sale a couple of weeks ago?
We're not going to do the light gray again. I'm going to do one 3X for Ian, who's been a patron for a while, but we didn't have any 3Xs available. So we're going to have like one for him, but we're going to have 2 different options. So whatever's available, we'll get them to you as well. But yeah, green is going to be one of them.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a shout out here. We have Bobby back.
Bobby Hirschman's back.
Hey,
Bobby Bottle Service
says, "Love me some Amy." Bobby Hirschman.
Any Canadian whiskeys on the podcast?
Brian was drinking some Crown, I believe, earlier.
Oh, so Crown
we
has made
Crown
appearance
in the garage as well. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so for part 2, the kind of framework of this conversation is say what you mean, do what you say. This was something that I feel like, as always, this is something that people, they're a little wishy-washy. It's interesting, actually, to me now these days that you can say whatever the hell you want, when it comes to everything that's been going on in 2020, whether it be the COVID stuff, whether it be, BLM, or whether it be the election stuff. This was all just, it got to a point where, whether it be through social media or literally through conversation, you're not supposed to say that, but you can say whatever you want. And I had said that on previous episodes, but when it comes down to like real things, like not saying they're not real things, when it comes to like everyday stuff, like business or something as simple as you get invited to something and you're like, hey, do you want to go do this? And like, yeah, well, yeah, maybe, you know what? Yeah, let me see what I'm doing. And it's like, you're an adult. It's a yes or no. Do you want to do it or not? Or just tell me, like, I do want to do that, but I might have something come up. I feel like there's an aspect of like when you say what you mean, for whatever reason, there's this hurdle or tripping point for a lot of people that they just can't out with it. They can't say no. They can't even say yes, because if you say yes, then all of a sudden you feel obligated. And there's a lot of people. What's that? We
are on 2 different levels. I don't have any of these problems.
You don't, but I mean, I'm sure you deal with people in the business world and personal relationships that when you ask them something, they start kind of like hawing around it, or they say something and they change it later, and it's like why? Like, what's the deal?
Can you work Saturday? Yes or no? Just tell me. If not,
right?
Yeah. Can you pick up this shift? Well, let me see what I can do. Yeah, I'll let you know. It's like, it's because you don't want to, or you don't want to commit because something might come up or whatever it might be. It should be simpler, because I feel like if there's a level of honesty.
Anybody's feelings, though, I think is the problem.
Why?
Because that's Sorry.
What'd you say? You don't want to hurt anyone's feelings?
Well, no, not me, but people.
One may not want to hurt. Yeah.
One may not want to be impolite.
So being honest is not impolite. That's my point.
It is
That's
not.
the whole point of it. I think it's more impolite to hem-haw around it and keep someone hanging on.
But we are in the snowflake era, so
why is it, I guess, that you can say whatever you want when it comes to bigger issues, your opinion, whether it's fact-based or just opinion, but when it comes to actual, again, everyday real life stuff,
yeah.
What do you like the age-old thing? I guess this is introducing other things, but if like a girl asks you, like, what do you think of this outfit? Do you be honest?
No.
Even you, you're like, no, I gotta.
Well, it's different coming from another girl. Like if they ask you guys,
what do you got? What should we say? This is also,
Ooh.
I didn't really introduce it, but this is kind of the Valentine's Day episode, also intertwined in this.
Not romantic. I'll tell you that right now.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Hey.
I've had the Romeo and Julieta in December. So
why do you think you're in the middle?
Jesus. I gotta go.
There's so many.
What were you gonna say, Amy?
I don't know.
I figured.
I don't know. Oh, with the outfits. Yeah, with the outfits. I think coming from another girl, it's very easy to be like, hey, maybe do this, and it's less offensive. But I think if you ask like a guy, like, what do you think about my outfit? They just lie about it.
Why?
I think it
lie,
depends
say you
on
look
the-
good, and then like they find out later you
talking
I don't
the
know.
insecurity aspect of it.
Yeah, it depends on how they're asking. Like,
Just say what you mean.
Why did you pick this topic?
Calm down there. We can go a lot of different ways with it, right? So say what you mean. Like it said, it's in this current scenario that we're talking about is I feel like there should be a level of honesty. Now you can address it with some tact, you know what I mean? Or you know that person. But I was talking more of like, are you honest? Do you say what you mean? Or do you say what you think they want to know? Because all of a sudden you start kind of jumbling it up and you don't, people don't necessarily, Shannon's already getting involved. I love this.
I think it probably depends
This
on
is
the
why I want to take
relationship
this.
with that person.
Whether it be a friendship, whether it be a romantic
I
relationship.
think
whether it
if
be a
you're really close
20-year
with them, you're super honest. And if sometimes you just need to be polite, and sometimes
I feel like it's
No.
if the other person, and I'll let Chan speak here shortly, but I think a lot of the certain people can handle the truth. Certain people can't handle the truth, especially as it comes to whether or not you're doubting their insecurities or not. Now, if you're asking specifically about a night out, that's something we can get into, or hey, will you or won't you? But Shannon, you're obviously at the mic. Go for it.
Well, I think in today's age with technology, more people want to be honest on the keyboard, but they can't be honest in a face-to-face conversation.
that's a good point. Yeah,
I think that's a huge problem right now.
So
because you can hide.
Keyboard warriors, like what they call,
Yeah.
you know.
I don't think it's an honesty thing. I think it's just
Anonymity.
say what you mean, right? So like, there's a level of honesty, but I think that it changes your perspective if you're doing it through a keyboard to
It was the
like
inference.
Facebook or whatever, like Twitter or whatever
So
it
when you
is.
do the Twitter,
It's not
this
necessarily
is
saying what you mean.
next one.
I think there's an aspect of it that they say what they. So now all of a sudden you've introduced the public, right? So it's not just a one-on-one interaction. A lot of times these aren't. You're not talking about. I don't think you're not talking about direct messages or text. You're talking. What I see more is now there's an audience. So now it's like you're projecting a persona of what you think people want to hear from you, or what you want people to hear from you. Not even just that direct audience.
Yes and no. I mean, a lot of people want to put out opinions and statements that they would never say to you in a personal conversation or in a conversation
That's
with
my point. Yeah.
people sitting around. And it's more, the anonymity part is more they can sit behind their phone or keyboard or whatever it is and say what they want and be honest or dishonest about whatever. But if you confront that person, then it's like, oh, well, you know, blah, 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 whatever the excuse is going to be. And there's
Okay.
no real interactions. Real interactions are disappearing.
So that's kind of my point, right?
Yep.
You know, that's part of it is that do you say what you actually mean? Go ahead, Brian.
But I also think that
Brian's so goddamn smooth. I mean, just he comes up to Mike so smooth.
But I also think that if you're having a conversation like that, both parties need to know their audience, because on both a personal level and on a is this person going to tell me the truth level, whatever. Because if Shannon comes to me and asks me that question, he knows I'm going to tell him the truth because he knows me well enough to know
If
that
you like his outfit,
if I like his outfit or if I like the decision he's making, whatever his question is, he knows if I go to B and ask him, he's going to tell me the fucking truth. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
you kind of have to know
Yeah.
both who you're asking. You have to know that person well enough, and vice versa. You have to know the other person well enough to be able to tell him the truth.
Like at work, there's one specific person that like Raina and I will always ask questions. They'll always ask questions to.
Yeah.
Like, cause he'll tell us straight, and everybody else is either scared or nice. I'm not quite sure, but we have like one like dude advice. You know, there's one dude that works there, and he'll tell it straight. But that's again, you want to who are you asking? Do you expect them to be honest? I would agree with that 100%.
but why do you think that's a rarity?
I
Like
think
you say there's this one person that you can go to that you know is going to shoot you straight.
Yeah, you have the friends
fact
that are always going to say great things.
or
The
what
yes
you,
men.
or what you want to hear.
Yeah, and then you have like your real friend, you know.
Yeah.
The one that you like fight with and
Says stuff you,
know,
don't necessarily want
right.
to hear.
But I think just in that statement is part of that, is that you even classified it as the people that you can talk to that you think they're going to say what you want to say or what you want to hear, or you can go to your, as you said, real friends that are going to shoot you straight.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things. I think this is, unfortunately, when you talk about the big social issues, you're on the keyboard warrior type thing, where this is, especially after this year, this has kind of been more of the common interaction between people as opposed to the face-to-face, because you're not supposed to be face-to-face.
Yep.
And God help I look at that age bracket of the socialization of like the 8 to 14-year-old kids right now that went through 2020. Like, these kids aren't going to know what the fuck to do when they actually meet
afraid
someone.
Yeah.
to take a phone call.
They're gonna do that whole thing, turtle up, when the fact that they're actually face to face with someone. It's like, oh, I actually have to look you in the eye
Mhm.
and tell you what I think. I think we already have that issue there. That's what that was kind of the thing. It's like, why can't you just go to someone? Why is everyone so concerned about the feelings of someone when in the end, if you, hey, do you want to meet up on Sunday? You want to meet up on this day, or do you want to, like, what do you think of this? And then at the end of it, you figure out that they were just being nice to you.
Mm.
And you even classified it, Amy, as kind of like put it in this category of, you already know that they're just going to be nice to you,
Right.
unless you go to that real friend.
Well, sometimes
It's pointless.
That's
You're
why
just
you ask
spinning
that
your
friend.
wheels.
I just need you to tell me I'm pretty today. How do I look today? You ask the not real
That's
friend.
saying what you mean.
You're
If you go up
very
to 'em-
pretty today, Amy. You
Right,
look
right, right.
great.
So you go to your real friend, and she's like, "Girl, you need to fix your hair." Like, that's your real friend, you know?
Mhm.
Sean, fix your hair. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. So I was just kind of going off what I was going to say what you just kind of brought up is 2020 and COVID and everything has really limited people for face-to-face interaction. It will be interesting once we do get back to a sense of normalcy, when people are back together, whether it's a party or you have a cookout and more people come over, how people will interact and how they'll say, what they actually say to each other, especially if you have people on Facebook that have different, I think political views are the biggest thing right now. And how people, I see it a lot with somebody posts something political, and then you've got people on both sides, and all of a sudden now you've got 100 comments and then it turns into a yelling match. It'll be interesting to see when people are actually face to face and how they act once this is all over and there's more of a social dynamic where people can be together.
I agree with you 100%. Just during the Super Bowl, I was watching the game with a handful of people, and the conversations they have at the Super Bowl are pretty, hey, Super Bowl commercial stuff like that. But then, as the alcohol flows and stuff like that, people do start to go towards the topic of the day. What are the political things and things like that? And people are not as articulate with their views in person as they might be by what is by the news channels that they watch and things like that.
Right.
They're able to regurgitate things that they've heard, but how do you personally feel about that? And because they haven't had these social interactions, real social interactions, they're unable to, I think, again, articulate their actual views in a dialogue. I think it's going to take a while for people to understand how do I talk to a bartender again? How do I talk to a server again? How do I talk to a group of people again? Because we have lost that sense in a year. We've lost how to talk to people in social settings.
Well, just imagine the people that are missing out on some schooling, the younger people.
Oh,
that's what I brought up, that age bracket.
They're in trouble.
Like the real young kids, when you're taught, ask the nice lady, whatever, you're not speaking to anyone. You're not used to it. You're scared already, and you're just missing out on all that.
Well, I think that we already had this issue, right? Going into this is the younger generations now. It's again, at my age, it's even my generation. It was go out and play. Like we had like the video games were being introduced into the mid and late 80s.
But you're not talking trash online to someone either.
Yeah, you're not doing it online. You actually had to go over to someone's house or play with your sibling. You had to do it in person with them, right? You throw your controller at whatever, you know what I mean? But you also went out
as vulgar in person as you might be online.
Yeah, the point is, so that is something where it's like you still went out and played in the yard or with the neighborhood kids. There was still that aspect of it, which I hope is out there. But I know at least this year, I would imagine there's a lot less of that.
Yeah.
I mean, even I was driving through the neighborhood, or like Sean lives in the neighborhood. I was driving through this neighborhood, and I remember seeing back in, it was warmer. So you're looking at like probably June, and there's a bunch of kids out there playing soccer. And I remember making the comment, I was like, well, this is part of it. Like, they shouldn't be doing that because all these kids are going to get together. And if this is as big as they're saying it is, COVID, now all of a sudden they're going to go back into their own homes with their parents, maybe grandparents, and that's an issue. Mm-hmm. So I think that was part of the whole message there is not to do that. Too? Well, that's the crippling part of it is that then you go to the other extreme where there's no interaction. You know what I mean? That's what I think we're talking about. Go ahead, Sean.
So my daughter's 12, will be 13 next month, and she does a lot of interacting with their friends, like video chats and stuff like that. And then when it was warmer, one thing I did appreciate about my daughter, she had a lot of friends in Westerville, so we'd take her into town, drop her off with her bike, and she could drive around, ride bikes around with her friends, and it kind of gave us. She was smart with like social distancing. If she were to go inside a house, she'd wear a mask, and it was really cool because that's like the first time I really seen her out and about, and actually being like I was when I was a kid, getting a bike and driving around, going to places, going to a park. Obviously, you have to maintain your distance, but at least they're out there trying to do something social.
Sure.
And so anyway,
I think it's easier now though. Like if you don't want to talk to someone, like if you're in person and they ask you a question, now it's just like, oh, I don't want to meet up on the Zoom call.
I'm not Zooming anyone. I'm serious. I hate that whole, like, you're just not raised like that though.
Yeah.
Like, our generation was raised to go speak to somebody. Like, I will pick up the phone before I Zoom.
Yeah. There's someone, he's been on the podcast and he's in the area and he actually works. He's the GM at Royale Cigar Lounge. And I remember saying to Ryan Newman at one point, I was like, there's a phone app on your iPhone. Because he literally just would never call anyone. And now he's going the other full circle. He FaceTimes you anytime he wants to. He's driving,
that's
he FaceTimes you. Like, all right, call.
That's the worst.
Don't go the other way.
In the business world, it's been an interesting dynamic, whereas it was all Zooms or all WebEx and things like that. And now it's you'll still do the calls on the computer, but now people don't want to see your face anymore.
Yeah.
Or there's only a few people that will show their face and everyone else is, wearing a robe or things like that. And just not
hopefully they're wearing a robe.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what they're wearing, but I just think that there's still two different worlds out there. There's people like you and Amy and even myself that are out and about and in the world and have to deal with the public, and then there is a large percentage of the public that has been in their house for a year.
Yeah. And
they will go out to dinner occasionally in a restaurant that they feel comfortable with, or they will go to a grocery store occasionally for what they need. But there is, I don't know, 50, 60% of the public that has not had social interaction for a very long time.
Which is not okay. I mean, that's not natural, right? And I think this is
sure,
contributing to the problem.
None of this is natural.
And to the people that are on the like Bobby, I know, welcome back to watching this. He says, I can watch this on the news. He comes here to talk cigars and booze. That's part one. This is part two. You're familiar with the podcast, Bobby, and everyone else out there that's not familiar with the podcast. Crown. This is when we kind of dive into other things. I mean, this is again
what news channel's talking about?
Saying what you mean. It's I think a lost art. It's a lost skill. I think if you can't, again, if you have tact to it and you have this kind of motivated what you want to get out of the conversation when you talk about like business. So like Spencer, you're in sales, right?
Correct.
And so it's like if you have a client, you don't just dance around the issues, and you don't want them to dance around the issues. It's at a certain point you address what you might think their concerns are. You ask them what their concerns might be. You ask them what the solutions, what they want, what they like, all this stuff. There's a way to do sales where you are trying to, in the conversation, address any of the points that that are important to them. And then at the end of it, you don't dance around the price. You don't dance around all this stuff. You got to just come out with it and be like, to do what we're doing here, what you want, what if this is what if the proposal looks right, this is the cost.
Sure. So that's
I oversimplified it.
Yeah, no, but I understand. So I think what you were saying earlier is similar to what Amy was saying, that it has to do with the security of the other person and their insecurities as well. So in sales, you can either sell them a product that they don't need, or offer them a beverage that they're not interested in, or you could ask them, what do you want to buy? And if you ask them, what do you want to buy? What type of liquor do you like? Then you could present them with a product that they want.
Yes.
I think where you're going with say what you mean, not what you say, and you're talking about just, hey, will you or won't you? You know, I personally made a conscious decision years ago that I didn't have the FOMO, the fear of missing out. And I think that some people do, or maybe look for the next best opportunity. And hey, what are you doing tonight? Which, you know, it's more of a high school or college thing where, hey, I got these 7 different options. I'm going to figure out what's the best. Or, hey, you text the same people, what are you up to tonight? And then you kind of weigh your options from there. But I'm to a point in life with my friends and things like that, that I'm just going to give you a yes or no answer. Can you do this or can't you do this? I'm just going to tell you yes or no. And I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but I think people just want to have the answer, whether you are wanting to do something or if you're not wanting to do something. And some people don't want to hurt people's feelings, but I also think that some people don't realize that you are hurting someone's feelings by leading them on by saying, yeah, I could do this, or maybe I could do this, or I don't know, I'll think about it, I'll let you know. And by dragging it out, and there might be extenuating circumstances as to why you're dragging out your answer, but most people just want a yes or no.
It's almost
just
ruder.
Kind of move on with it. Yeah, it's almost ruder
because you're just waiting now for that answer.
Like when we were approaching you, you know, about a month or two ago, hey, can you do this podcast? Yes or no?
She said no.
She literally said, yeah, let me get you a date. And when we got you a date, then you're like, cool, I'm in.
Yeah.
So it wasn't high pressure sales.
I mean, that's the entire reason you came to see me, right?
No.
You were just begging me to come back on this podcast.
You would be working that night.
We were hoping. No. But like even like something simple as like I invited Spencer over for the Super Bowl, and I had a handful of people over, and he said at first he's like, yeah, that sounds good, and then we started talking a little bit more, and he's like, well, you know, I'm not sure, I gotta like check with so and so and do, you know, but he communicated, so it wasn't a necessarily a him hawing, and I know Spencer well enough, right? So we have that relationship where if he says he's not sure, I don't really care.
You're not offended by it.
Yeah, I'm not offended by it because he is a man of his word.
Right.
And if he communicated that I've got these other things possibly going to happen, so I you know, I'll let you know.
Mm-hmm.
And cool.
Yeah, but I don't let you know an hour before. I let you know several days before as well.
Or you say it's not likely because of this reason, but I might still show up. You're not. And again, I think there is some of that foundation there that it's not like you're playing hard to get in a sense that like, well, I might be there, I might not. Yeah, I know you're pretty easy, but I think that it's something that.
All right, so when I invite both of you guys over for boys' night, I got a baby from both of you. You want to explain that one?
I told you no. I told you no pretty quickly.
Oof.
Sean, go ahead.
When's boys' night? What's going on? What's happening?
She was hosting for the UFC fight with Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I like
I
it.
think I said I was most likely out. I'll look back at that. Siri. I blame Siri.
Is the screen frozen or is that just
Sean, go ahead.
I think another thing,
point.
And I can attest this just
you're welcome.
With my wife was it's a fear of commitment. So if you're asking somebody to do something, a lot of times people, I guess you could
What's the fear though?
It's just FOMO. It's what else could I be doing? Do I want to commit to this if something else pops up?
Right. And when I first dated my wife, when we first started dating, it was like she wouldn't commit a week out. Like, hey, you want to go out to dinner next week? And
how old were you guys then?
Well, I was 26. She was 21. But even to this day, she's still like, hey, so-and-so asks us out to dinner for a cookout next week. I don't know. I don't want to commit yet. You know, I don't know what, so because again, it's that whole, what if something else is going on? Then you don't want to let them down. So it's been married for 20 years, 21 years coming up. So I've always had to deal with it. Like, I'm more like, hey, let's do it. I'm in. And I'm married to somebody who's
usually one partner is less likely to want to go do everything.
Yeah. She's kind of, she'd rather stay at home and chill or whatever. But I'm the one that kind of brings it out. And then when she ends up going to some these things that I commit to, she has a great time, but it's getting that over that hump to just make that commitment.
Well, that's why that works so well too.
I think there's a commitment level of that, and there is a level of now you've committed. You don't want to back out, so you're putting yourself in that position there. Even if you think you want to do it, sometimes people will then they feel committed, and all of a sudden it changes that. And there's a level even more so now that there is a level of now anxiety that you have to rise to that occasion, just even if it's a cookout.
Yeah.
Something small that shouldn't be a big deal, but there is that character. There's a part of a character or a personality that they aren't like, once they commit, it's not even easy going anymore. Now it's like, I have to do it. Now what else goes into
and
it
there's
now?
the stress.
What if I wake up and I don't feel like going?
Right.
And like all that stuff. It's like, if you wake up, you don't feel like going, just say that.
And on a specific level, COVID has really put a damper / excuse into anything as far as commitment wise and things like that, because there's just a whole nother elephant in the room, a big freaking elephant in the room as far as doing anything with anybody right now. But I think, we're diving down a pretty specific rabbit hole with this, but I feel like where you wanted to go with this was a broader subject as far as do what you mean.
Say what you mean, do what you say. That
It's
goes
like
into
two
the
parts.
next thing.
Yeah. The first part is you're never honest about what you say your actual intentions are. And then once you've made that would be the second part. Which
I think part of it is, the first part is say what you mean. So is it easier for people to just, if you just open up and you're honest, and even if you don't know, say that. Don't just like play along with it that you don't want to, like Amy, you brought it up. It's you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Right.
It's like,
fuck your feelings.
It's not necessarily fuck your feelings. It is. It can be.
It is.
I think it's don't play around with it. Just be honest. It's okay if say what you mean is, I don't know if I'm going to feel like going that day. I don't know if I want to tell you this. I don't know if I need time to reflect on this business decision.
Oh, so sensitive. Just people are so sensitive.
They are
with this stuff.
That's what I'm saying. Like you can talk anymore these days. I feel like people can talk about politics. They can talk about even religion. They can talk about all the shit that we went through in 2020. But if you ask them how they're feeling, they fucking lock up.
Well, there's something.
People can't even talk about themselves. I think that's where I'm going with this. Is that when it brings in the personal side of you, as opposed to just the bigger picture, where you can hide behind the different aspects, the agendas, what's going on in the world, and all this stuff, and what you have backing your decisions. When it comes to like, what do you think?
Yeah. So
people lock up.
So there's a trend here that's kind of going on where, the reality of what's going on is there's a pandemic going on. It's affected everybody's lives in a myriad of different ways. But there's something that goes on where if one person dies in a car crash and it's just a person, everyone is really kind of reaching out to that one person and things like that. But if 50 people die in a car crash, it's less significant. And I think that's what's happened with kind of what's going on with everything these days. As hey, if one person dies of COVID, it's a big deal, but it's 400,000 people die of COVID, or whatever you think about the numbers, that people are desensitized to that number specifically. So I think when people talk about broader subjects, politically and things like that, they feel like, hey, if I just state my opinion, that it's to a large group of people, and 50% of people are going to agree with me, 50% aren't. But I can express my opinion in a broad point of view. But if I have a one-on-one conversation with someone that doesn't necessarily agree with me, or that just has a different point of view on it, to get the nuance of a one-on-one conversation, it's much more difficult than saying, I believe in X or I believe in Y, because I think just the individual conversations, people are much more less comfortable with versus just stating something online.
I agree with that. Have either of you guys did you get COVID at all? Did you ever test positive to it?
I think I had it, but I didn't have any symptoms.
You never tested positive.
Significant other had it.
Yeah.
And I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
But
so
there's
that
no
was
way I could
to
have
your
had
point. It's like people can talk about COVID and all this stuff, like you're talking about, like that whole, like if one person in the car crash versus the 50, it was very interesting. I've touched on it before, but I tested positive at the beginning of November, and it was a world of difference in my conversations, right? So it's like people talk about everything they saw on fucking Twitter, on the news, and everything like that, and that people are doing this. I go back to the point where it's like I had an opinion where it was like I didn't even get COVID right for some people.
You didn't have an opinion. You were dealing with your personal set of facts. It wasn't an opinion that you were dealing with.
No, but it got to the point where it's like
people had opinions about your situation.
People were like, in November, like we're months and months into this, right? And then people were like, well, oh my God, like how did Steve get it? And I'm like, you guys can't fucking shut up about this for the last several months. It's on the news. You have your opinions on this. And then I test positive. I break the fever in one day and then I'm good again. And I tell you literally what the doctor told me. And they're like, I don't know about that. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like I am of the majority, 90% of people had a similar experience of mine. And when I say the doctor told me about vitamin D, they talked about like zinc, they talked about these things. This is why you probably bounce back and you're healthy and you take care of yourself. And thank God I didn't have any major adverse effects that just were some of the more unique ones when you look at the overall population, the overall numbers. And it was like people were like looking at it like, first of all, like, how'd you get it? And it's like, I joke about it. It's like, it's not a fucking STD. Like I didn't like go around and like I caught COVID. I walked outside and I got it.
I mean, isn't that how you got it though?
No.
When a man loves a woman.
My point is that even with that kind of stuff, it's easier to talk about it in generalities. But when it comes to in person,
well, that's the opposite.
You tell them this is actual fact.
It's the opinions to now argue. So it's the total opposite.
And you can show them literally black and white details on the documentation that I got, that this is the CDC. This is what they say about this. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, I don't, that's not what I heard. Okay.
Yeah. Nobody's ever
Nate.
happy.
Nate.
I wanted to get your guys' opinion on a phrase that was actually sent to me. To be unclear is to be unkind.
That's very good.
Because I think that's kind of what you're talking about when you're talking about, say what you mean and do what you say. Get out of that wishy-washy. Well, maybe I'll see if something else comes up. Like, to be unclear is to be unkind. I want to get your guys' opinion on that phrase.
I think there's a difference between being just blunt for the purpose of being blunt.
Yeah, you need to have some panache to it, right?
Yeah, there's got to be some tact. There's got to be some finesse to it based on your audience. But yeah, if you're just being unclear to be unclear and to bide your time, there's no win there.
Yeah,
because there's no communication. There's no true communication, so nothing can actually come from that situation, that conversation, if you're not being clear on what you are wanting, what you're lacking, what you if you're being honest. If you're just doing it to bide your time, all of a sudden in that time it's going to get muddier and muddier.
Can I throw something super sexist in here?
Absolutely.
I was about to, so go ahead.
I think on a female end too, it comes off, because I obviously am not kind, unclear, or any of the things that we're talking about.
I disagree. But
you're kind.
You're kind.
Well, but sometimes
you're not unclear.
Don't worry about what everyone else says about you. You're good.
but sometimes I come off a certain way. People refer to me a certain way because I am super direct and I'm less maybe. And it's very expected of some people, be it your position, if you're male or female, your age. I think that you're expected to answer a certain way. And being female, I think that I'm supposed to be more polite with some of it.
I wouldn't say supposed to. I would say some people expect.
Some people do expect.
Right. But I would say that your respect level from people has gone up exponentially because of this. So do you want to be respected or do you want to be liked? And it's tough to be both all the time. It's
almost impossible.
Very good point.
But I know just a lot of women that don't say exactly how they feel because they don't want to come off bitchy or whatever. And it ends up coming off very wishy-washy or sometimes even stupid because they aren't saying how they actually feel, because sometimes the repercussions are less than favorable.
Well, I think it goes back to also we had this active listening topic a while, not too long ago with bourbon and blondes, and it was something that if you are going into a conversation, you just kind of same thing. You need to be direct on both sides of the conversation. So if you just want that person to hear you out, because on the other side of the like you say, sexist, is that typically guys are known as fixers.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's necessarily the guy. You might be a little bit like that as well, based on what you're saying. It's not about male, female. It's about the fact that you're coming to me with a problem.
Right. What is the solution?
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say what I mean.
Yeah.
So if you come into it though, you have to offer that when that situation that I just want you to listen.
Right.
Or on the other side, do you want me to listen or do you want me to like actually contribute to this conversation?
Yeah.
How do you want me to interact?
That is,
again, this is it's open lines of communication.
A little more expected from most people when you're talking to a man too.
Right.
And it isn't so much, it comes off a little harsher sometimes when you're expected to be more of a people pleaser, like a little softer. Some people I do think hesitate because they don't want to come off,
Yeah. And how'd you say it, Spencer?
direct.
Like, do you want to be honest or you want to be liked?
No,
Why did you say
I didn't
that?
say honest. I said respected. And,
Respected.
yeah, but when you're with the type of female that I like being with, you want to respect her. You want to respect her opinion. And every girl gets a little crazy right now. Every guy gets a little crazy, and stuff like that. But you want to be able to respect where they're coming from and have them stand up to you. And it could come off as bitchy, but if a guy, it comes off as firm,
right,
or something like that, and that's just
Yeah,
just
I think
the
I know
way things
just
are.
a lot of women that their opinions definitely change behind closed doors than in front of other people.
Right. And then the guy sometimes doesn't know exactly where the woman's coming from, because she's afraid that she will have repercussions based on, if I say this, how will he react to that, where a guy doesn't necessarily feel the same level of, hey, if I say this, how's she going to react? We're more
you just want a direct answer,
right?
You just want to know where we want to go to dinner.
Shoot from the hip, like
what the hell we want to eat.
And here we are on the Valentine's Day.
Yeah, what do you want? Anything. All right, how about this place? No. Cool.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how about we don't have to give up this part of the topic completely, but do what you say. That's definitely something important with sales, and I think we're all in sales. Obviously, Spencer, that's what you do primarily. But I mean, again, being in the bar and restaurant industry, that's sales. Me doing what I'm doing in the cigar industry, it's sales.
Yep,
everything is sales.
If you got to do what you say. I mean, that's something that I learned a long time ago when, and I don't use email nearly as much in the industry I'm in now, and I'm sure you do.
Just kind of DM.
Yeah, slide in there. No, it's more face to face. Like that's where I struggle with all of this stuff, because I am even more now, more inclined to have face to face interactions with people. Even when I went to this last spring and summer when we were trying to be creative, it was, how do I do this? I'll just go and do more video messages. I'll do all this stuff. I'll put my face out there and do that for the shop. But with something that was the email thing, it's like if you're in sales and you have this first interaction or you have these consultations or whatever it might be, it would always be something that I was trained to start the body of the email as I said I would, type of a thing. As I said I would, here's this, because you're following through, you're continuing the conversation.
All that you have in this life it's very simple, and it has nothing to do with what type of product, whether it's food and beverage or cigars or in my case cabinets. It's all that you have in this world is your reputation. So your reputation, no matter what brand you're selling or product that you're selling, all that you have is your reputation. And if you do what you say, or at least you try to do what you say, your reputation will stay intact. And if for some reason you can't accomplish what you say, all most people really want is the open communication. When
Yes.
people go silent on it, or hey, if your food's coming out late, or if that cigar's on stock, or whatever the case may be, as long as you don't go radio silent on people and say, hey, it's going to be here in 10 minutes. It's going to be here next month. Hey, we're sorry about this delay. It fell off a truck, whatever the case may be. If you keep the communication open, that helps people's expectations. My biggest phrase that I enjoy is happiness is based upon expectations.
Okay.
So if you can temper people's expectations, or if you can keep people's expectations to the proper protocol, like, hey, we'll get that in next week. And if you get it in 5 days, you're all of a sudden a hero. So keeping people's expectations to the right point by doing what you say. And if things change, then you change what you say. But I think when people try to cover up or they try to make excuses and stuff like that, no one really cares about the reason why your food's not there at a certain time, why your cigar's not there, why your cabinet's not there. They just want to know, okay, if it's not here now, when is it going to be here? And I will do everything I can to make the situation right. Because problems are going to arise in every type of industry. It's how quickly you can react to those problems. And if you say, hey, I'll fix it, then fix it.
Yeah. In business and also personal, like if you, like in personal or dating or anything else, it's ghosting. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. So like that's the term used in that.
I think it's very different too. Dealing with, I think people are much easier to tell the truth in business and be a little bit more direct than the personal, just because they don't want to offend.
There's not as much emotion involved.
Not as much conflict.
Yeah.
You could lose the sale.
Well, and I mean, just I think in the dating world and stuff like that, it's people are more ready to not have contact with the other person and say, hey, I appreciate it. We had fun the other night, but it's just not for me.
Yeah. Because you don't want to say anything negative.
Or you just don't want confrontation. A lot of people are just uncomfortable with confrontation or unwilling to step up to play and say, hey, you're not for me for whatever case.
Yeah.
I suggest everyone watches The Bachelor or Bachelorette.
Nope.
They're very good at that.
Nope.
And you just gotta when you say no, I mean that's a hard yes, but that's okay.
We can watch together maybe.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Nate, go ahead.
You're talking about The Bachelor. Go ahead.
No, this
you're on about The Bachelor, Bachelorette. Which one?
No, this question's more directed at Amy, just because I know Spencer's talked a little bit about how the topic relates to him in sales. How does the topic, to get off the personal aspect, how does the topic relate to you in the bar industry about saying what you mean and doing what you say? How does that relate specifically either in the bar industry or as a business owner?
I think as a business owner, it's expected to be very direct. And it's different when I'm talking to a rep or making any kind of deal or talking business. It's very different than when I'm talking to a customer. So I tend to also be very direct talking to a customer, and I probably am not expected to be as direct. But I think it's helped me with the business to be very direct. But less so when I'm speaking to a customer. I think I'm respected more when I'm very direct. I know exactly what I want when I want it, and
probably helps with your vendors too. They know exactly what, because you
yeah.
know what you can sell. So hey, if you come out with this or if you bring me this, I can sell this. If not,
so when they say too, I can provide whatever, something is coming, a rare bottle of whatever, and it doesn't show. I'm very direct, and that is the opposite end with them, which is I promise something and I can't deliver it. I'm not doing what I say I'm going to do.
The second part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they do tie hand in hand, but I definitely, there's two levels of it in my business. With the customer, I have to be more what they want to hear. With the actual business side, I don't care what they want to hear.
I'm just saying, next time you're on, I'd like some wings and maybe some Reuben egg rolls, just something along those lines.
I think this gets back to
we can do a whole cooking show.
I would love to do a cooking show.
Yeah, the next one we'll have a cooking podcast. We'll do it in the kitchen.
Perfect. Do it in the kitchen. All right, perfect. Yeah, I guess.
Sure, whatever.
Smoke there.
We have the fan.
Perfect.
Oh, I have a story about that later, but not.
So I think being direct is sometimes putting that kind of under the umbrella of being negative, which is not the case. So that is something. Being direct, when we're talking about it, it's not always the fact that you have to say no, but that is the easy, because saying yes and being direct is easy, because you are fulfilling everything. You're making that person happy. You're making whatever the situation is happy. Can you do, like sales? Can you do it for this price? Absolutely. there's no conflict.
Right.
So you go back to what
or
Spencer's
just
saying, the
say,
conflict.
no, I can't. And then they respect it. Some people are trying to push you to, hey, can you do it for, no, I can't. Well, it doesn't hurt to ask. Sometimes people say that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they ask, they try to push as far as you can go. And then you say no.
But again, going back to that,
Saying no is a nice thing. Saying no is a really nice thing to do in life. Being able to say no to things, being able to say no to people, it's an empowering thing. And
it's better to say no to someone as opposed to just letting it go. Like you said, I mean, like whether it be ghosting or whether it be just like no news is good news type thing. When I was doing claims for the moving company, one of the things that I did really well and had good reception from customers is like, if I was waiting or if I just flat out just like, I haven't gotten to it yet, and I told you I'd get back to you in 48 hours, I would get back to them within 48 hours and say, you are actually next in line. So I'm going to need another 24.
You kept the communication open.
It's keeping the communication open. So I didn't necessarily, if you just let it go, like when I had moved beyond that position, all of a sudden I was managing people that were doing that. And that was one of the biggest problems, is that it would be voicemail after voicemail. It's like, hey, it's been 5 days. You said you were going to get back to me on Tuesday.
Right.
And I haven't heard from you. I've left you these voicemails and you haven't responded. And that's a problem.
And underrated,
because people get agitated.
An underrated skill these days, because everyone has their phone on them and things like that, but is answering emails in in less than 24 hours, answering texts in an hour or less, responding to phone calls. Everyone thinks it's an easy thing to do, but 50%, 60, 70% people don't do that.
No.
Showing up when you're supposed to show up. If you're supposed to be someplace for this, if you're supposed to be there at 7, get there a little bit before 7. Things along those lines. It's something that is a skill that is lost, but it's not underappreciated by the people that do it. And
that skill is lost on me.
Yeah.
Well, being on time.
Oh my God.
Do you text or say I'm running behind, or you just expect them to expect?
It depends on how well you know me. If you know me, I'll be 15 minutes late. If you don't know me, I'm still going to be 15 minutes late.
The podcast would start at 4 p.m. and you got here just. All
right, throw me that 8 over there.
So I would like to talk a little bit about this second cigar, Steve, if you don't mind. So I think the second cigar actually goes better with the rums, because I think it's a more milder, less spice, things along those lines than the first. I think this cigar could go with absolutely everything.
It is a very easy smoking cigar.
It's fantastic. So what does the first cigar go for, and what does this cigar go for?
The first cigar, they're not too far off. Yeah, they're I think suggested retail is going to be in that like $8 to $10.
So this is not like Nate and I were talking about the Monte Cristo White earlier. And I don't think that this is on the same level as something like that, but I think as far as consistency with the smoke, the mildness of it, this is just a solid cigar, Steve. It really is. It's kind of right down the middle, just fantastic cigar.
Mm-hmm.
So the White Series and the Reserve Real, they're both coming from Altadis, but one's going to be Romeo and Julieta, the other's going to be Monte Cristo. So just like with some of the other bigger companies, like there's going to be a step up when it comes to certain brands.
What would be the step up from this one?
The Monte Cristo series.
So Romeo and Julieta does the Monte Cristo as well. So they're Monte Cristo.
Altadis USA. So the banner right behind you. So like a lot of your Romeo and Julieta cigars, they're going to run in that $8 to $11 range. And then the Monte Cristos are going to run in that $11 to $16 range, depending on what the blend is. Like the Espadas, the Espada Oscuro, Espada Estoque, those are going to be in that like $14 to $16 range. But then the Monte Cristo Classic and White Series are going to typically be in that $11 to $15 range. So just a bump up from what the Romeos are.
So this is going to be Ecuadorian wrapper as well.
Is this Ecuadorian?
This is Ecuadorian wrapper, but it's a Connecticut seed, so they shade grow it. That's why it's got that lighter shade. It's got a lighter flavor to it, and then it's also a Nicaraguan Dominican in the filler and binder. So there are similarities to the makeup, but again, it's going to be different based on like the seeds used. I mean, it's definitely milder than the Revelation.
No, I agree. I just think that this cigar could go well with pretty much anything that you put in front of me.
I think these rums are too high proof for this.
Nate's saying that's what my point was, is that there is a lot of flavor from it, but if you throw a cast strength in front of it, it might overpower it.
I can see that.
Yeah. So going back though to the say what you mean, do what you say.
Yeah, I feel like there's a you were interested in this topic. I feel like there's
I mean, this is something
this
that we've already kind of started tackling. I mean, this is something that I think is lacking, and when I am concerned personally that we are going to have a harder time with this based on what we talked about, some of the audience that talked about with, the keyboard warriors and all that stuff, is that you can talk about bigger social issues, but when it comes to your own personal beliefs of what's going on in your everyday life, that is a backseat to everything else.
Well, I feel like Amy is a good example of, a lot of people were very supportive one way or another about all the things that have happened this year and would keyboard warrior it. And Amy, when there was an issue that you guys wanted to actually talk about, you didn't just type online or do social media posts about it. You actually physically did something about it.
And then posted on social media.
And then posted on social media.
You have to.
Yeah.
But I think that because you did something about it, your social media posts meant more than whether or not you would just said sit behind and this is unfair and okay, fine. And then you got a bunch of people that support it online. Yeah. And then it just kind of fizzles away.
Yeah, we had some great support. We heard from a lot of people from the industry too that I've never met. Mm-hmm. They were just kind of like, thank you for speaking when nobody else was, or when I can't do it or something. But the great thing about being online is that you can say whatever and it tears you apart, but it also kind of brings you together too. So it can work for you and it can also not, depending on where you go with that,
So I'm looking at it when you're talking about the deeper thing. I want people to realize that when there are things that are important to you, whether it be the big social causes or whether it be like where you want to go to dinner that night. I mean, this is a full spectrum, right? Mm. And I'm saying some things are more important than others, but when it comes to you as a person, just out with it.
Yeah.
Stop holding back, be honest, keep the lines of communication open. If something is bothering you, say it. Do not just sit on it. You know what I mean? There are too many people in this last year. It was really apparent to me that people would just talk about shit and not do anything about it. Right. They'd be upset about it. Now you got emotions involved. And then when you actually have someone that you talk, like what's going on? Like, what do you want to do about it? They don't know what to say. They don't know what to do because it was easier.
No, they're regurgitating information.
Yeah.
They might even feel it. It's not necessarily regurgitating. That was an aspect of it, but I think there was a part of it's like, okay, like I understand that this is upsetting. I understand that you feel this way. What do you want to do about it? Because saying what you mean, that's the other side of it, is do what you say. So in this last year, if you believe in a cause, you have to understand that you can only get so wrapped up into it based on your effort, based on what your belief level is. So that was the whole thing. It's like what Amy did with the industry was simply that, is she could either piss and moan and fucking go to her room and just be like, this is bullshit and all this stuff.
Oh, I did that too.
I was going to say she did that too.
Or you can take it to the next step and do something about it.
Yeah.
And that's the topic I think at hand, is that you have to realize that, mean what you say, but then do something. Do what you say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with anything that you're saying.
There's a foggy line of what's acceptable and what isn't, though. On that, like how far
by who?
By whoever.
Yeah.
Whoever is on the other end of whatever you're trying to talk about.
And in both of your industries, because and in mine as well, I guess when you're dealing with people on a face-to-face basis, what topics are red topics, or I shouldn't say red or blue topics, but are hot topics. So you have to play the line there within the middle that, hey, I'm just the messenger here. I'm more than willing to vote, or to listen to your grievances and things along those lines.
Yeah.
But I'm not here to solve your problems. I'm not here to agree with you or to disagree with you. And that's a tough line across. It wasn't that long ago where you did not want to talk about politics or religion at the dinner table. It wasn't that long
ago.
Or
just the strangers.
It was, no one really knew where people's allegiances lied with stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I feel like almost now it's like, oh, I'm a bourbon person, so that defines me. Or, oh, I'm a beer guy, so that's a part of my personality. Or, oh, I'm I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat. That defines
Mhm.
me. Where I've said this before on the podcast, where I don't feel like your ideas should define you. And I feel like that now they do, because people don't have other stuff to define them, because there's not as many things going on in their lives. When I say, hey, what'd you do last week? Well, you're not going to have as many things to talk about,
Right.
but you do know what the topics of the day are on
Yes.
on social media or on CNN or Fox and things like that.
Let me ask you this: when was the last time you had a real conversation with a new person about anything other than just the big picture ideas?
Mm.
So it is interesting when you do have those. I had that with someone on, during the Super Bowl, when they had a couple too many, and they wanted to talk about their opinions on things. And it wasn't necessarily their opinions on things. It was them restating opinions on things. But when you actually get down to, well, how does this affect you on a day-to-day basis?
Or they don't know. They don't have the facts.
They don't know. Or their facts are different than your facts.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different thing, is that everyone's dealing with different facts now. But how is your life? Amy, when you first sat down today, before we started, I said, well, how are things? You're like, well, what do you mean? I was like,
which things?
Right. Which things? Well, I mean, just you in general. Like, are you doing okay? I'm not saying how are things going in the, in Washington, D.C. today, but how are things going in your personal life? I feel because there's less things going on in everyone's individual life. Hey, do you got any vacations planned? Do you got any of this planned? Because there's less topics to actually talk about.
People don't talk about that stuff.
People don't have the same, they don't have anything else to talk about. So they're talking about things that they have heard or seen by other things. But how many people can actually sit at a table with 3 other people, or go to dinner with a handful of other people and just be like, hey, how was your dinner last night? Hey, how was the podcast?
There's less experiences.
Far less experiences, which is why maybe people go more towards, comfort and things like that. But they just have less things to talk about. So they're talking about things on a much broader spectrum than what's going on with you. What are you up to this weekend?
And I think that this has happened more. And again, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of any of the conspiracy theories or anything like that.
Every time you say rabbit hole, I got
all right, drink it up, man. Rabbit hole.
Are we doing rabbit hole?
No rabbit hole. But that's the thing, is that when you eliminate the day-to-day experiences, that's what we dealt with, right? So you're locked in your house. You got tired after the first month talking about, I gardened, and I went out of the house and I walked the dog and all that stuff. There's no actual new experiences to have. So I think this was inundated to us to a point where it's like, if you didn't have those experiences, you're talking about the people that haven't been out in 10 months or whatever, they don't have anything to talk about.
Yeah.
So what do you talk about? How are things?
What they saw on TV.
Yeah. How are things? Like, what do you want to talk about today? And it's like, today, it's like, oh yeah, Trump, second day of impeachment trial. It's like, I saw that too.
Yeah.
How are you? Is where I feel like we're losing. And that's where this whole thing of this interaction between people, that's kind of, I think, what brought it on.
Do either of you, because you all deal with the public on a day-to-day basis, do you see a light at the end of the tunnel? Are the conversations that you have at the Tinderbox, or the conversations you have at McClellan's different now than they were 4 months ago?
It depends on who I'm talking to. If you've been in your house all day or all year or not. Because some of them are just excited they got to put pants on and come out. Like, they're 2 totally different worlds.
Yeah.
So they're really all over the place.
So right now I look at it as that I've seen a different side of people, and I saw it coming, is that not only do you have this COVID level fatigue, not the disease itself, but just the situation we've been in. And now you added in the seasonal depression that we all saw coming. And in the Midwest where we're at, it's fucking cold and gray.
Yeah.
So normally this time of the year, people get depressed. They don't want to go out. They don't want to do anything.
I haven't thought about that, man.
So you add that into it, and now people are just either happy to be out, like Amy said, or you're more bitter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've pushed people away, not at first voluntarily, but now you are, not knowing you are, and you just don't even want to talk to people because you wake up. It's the same thing you've been doing for the last 10 months or whatever, right? So you forced it. Now you look outside the window, and here in Ohio, at least, we had a bunch of snow and it was gray. So do you want to go out in 15-degree weather in this? Normally not. Do you want to do it now? Definitely not. But you also don't want to stay where you're at. So we had some sunshine over the weekend here in Columbus, and it was something that where I was at a outdoor mall area working, the parking lots were packed.
Really?
They were packed. Now you fast forward to Tuesday, Wednesday this week, fucking empty again.
Sure.
Sun's not out, right?
Guns out.
Well, depends who you are, but no, but I mean, people just don't. When it's like this outside and it's wintertime, people just fucking hate it.
Yeah.
They're bitter. A lot of people are bitter. They're tired of it, and they don't even know what to do anymore.
I feel like
that I said, yeah, seasonal depression. Nate said off mic, but it was something that it was like there's seasonal depression on top of 10 months of fatigue. So even when it was sunny at first, it was like, hey, we got this for like 2-3 weeks. We're gonna take care of this COVID thing, and then we'll get back to it.
I thought it was a weekend when it first started.
That's Florida.
No, I really did. I mean, like when it all started, I was like, oh,
I actually had a great time when it first started. I was like, this is fantastic.
You got a little vacation.
Yeah, I've never been able to take that much time off.
Right.
Got so much done.
And then you realized.
Right. We can't keep paying for all this because nothing's coming in to get all this stuff done.
Do both of you see a light at the end of the tunnel?
What do you think? You're asking us questions. Spencer,
Well,
what do you think? You've been
I
traveling.
see. So yeah, so in my world, it's considered, construction stuff like that is considered an essential industry, whether for right or wrong. But my industry hasn't stopped just because people need new houses, they need to be remodeled, stuff like that.
Yeah,
probably more so since they're in it all the time.
Probably more so. Very, very fortunate as far as that aspect that people happen to need what I have to sell them. But I am seeing, my parents are getting the vaccine on Friday. Steve, your mom got the vaccine.
She got the first one.
She got the first one. My grandparents got both vaccines. I'm seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not saying that we should stop the mask and do all that type of stuff for whatever. And now they're saying the 2 masks, whatever. But I'm seeing that, hey, there's a light at the end of the tunnel to this. And I'm saying, all right, there's some hope. There's a timeline here. And I think, whether this is going to be like the roaring 20s, where after the 1918 flu that people are thinking, okay, now we're going to be able to spend our money. Now we're going to want to go to restaurants more often. Now we're going to want to do cigars more often. Now we're going to want to have events or travel and things like that. People have a pent up demand for this type of thing. And I'm thinking people are wanting to do these things. This has nothing to do with the topic in general, but I do see a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that's the only way you can look at it. Because
I think it does have something to do with the topic.
Okay. How so?
I think you've seen people that are saying all this stuff about, like, if we're going to stay on this a little bit, about COVID and everything like that, right? So it's like, hey, I'm not going to do this. Like, you got to really take care of yourself. Those are the people that I brought up earlier that like, oh, I just got back from vacation. Where'd you go? Florida. Yeah. It's like, what the fuck? You just told me that you don't want to be in restaurants. You don't want to do anything, but it's like you just took a vacation to another state and then came back. Like, you not going to restaurants is not quarantining yourself. Or you just traveled,
or they didn't want to do it for the sake of their loved ones and things like that. Hey, I've been.
That's fine. That maybe
mentally trying not to do this for whether it's.
But then you do it. That's my point. Well, that's my point.
People are incredibly hypocritical with all this.
I think it's absolutely, you pick and choose. It's like, the age old thing. It's like, like if you're trying to preach to someone, you pick and choose your Bible verses, but you don't talk about the entire book or the entire chapter. You don't even talk about the entire passage. It's the same thing. It's like you literally just pick and choose what you feel comfortable with, that you are actually making a better place for everyone. And then when it comes down to you,
it's every man for themselves.
It's the same thing as like when you talk about like the COVID thing, and it was the same. Hey, I got to do this, got to do that. And then when I got COVID or whatever, or if like someone on your staff, Amy, I'm not going to like put that like specifically, but I know of other establishments that it's like it came down to it, but it's like then someone actually gets COVID and it's like they don't shut down for 14 days like some other places.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying your place did that. I know of other places that it's like, nope, you just take off work until you're clear, and we're just going to keep battling through it. And it's like, before that happened, it was like, if this happens, then we're going to shut down, we're going to do this. Yeah. And it's like, oh shit, we can't do that. It's the same thing.
Until it affects your bottom line.
It affects your bottom line, or as a person, like I said, it's like, I'm not going to do anything to put anyone in danger, including myself. I'm going to quarantine myself, except for the week that I drive down to Florida and hit up restaurants and do all this shit. But I was safe about it. It's like, based on what?
We should go to Florida or Barbados
I'd love to. Same thing with the double mask thing. It's like now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, the double mask thing. This comes out, what, 10 months into this? Is like, hey, it's safer if you do double mask. It's like, how many masks do I have to do until I can't fucking breathe
4.
that I don't get anyone infected
It's
about it?
4. You know that.
Well, it's even safer for an entire bubble. We could just be in one of those.
We got 3% in Ohio that are vaccinated completely, and all of a sudden we're opening stuff back up.
I
It
saw
doesn't
that.
make sense.
Well, none of this makes sense. I think we just gotta, you gotta adjust. You gotta roll with it. And if you're trying to fight it, you're fighting a losing battle. So you just gotta roll with it. And both of you have done a fantastic job of things you've done at the tinderbox, things you've done at the bar. You just have to roll with it. If not, you're fighting a losing battle uphill both ways. So you have to roll with it. And people that have adjusted, you will have a stronger business. You will have a stronger business by coming out of this, and some of your competitors will have gone down because they haven't been able to adjust as quickly.
And that's fair. And I'm going to do closing remarks then at this point, because I feel like this can go off the rails at this point. Personally, I think it can.
I got time.
No. Let's keep a structure to it. So
just more rum. He could talk all night. Just give him more
rum.
rum.
I think the rum's fantastic.
I'm on the Michter's right now. So Amy, closing remarks on the second part here, if you would. Summary or new things.
I think that this is just a circle of, we could do this all day, I suppose, with all of it. And there's just so many different ways to look at all of it. But I think it's a good topic to reflect on for yourself. Do I say what I mean? Do I do what I say? And, whatever area that it's in, I think this is a good topic, because maybe just like a personal check of, am I doing this? Am I not doing this? And kind of just going from there, whatever area that is, because we could apply it to literally anything. But just in our lives, are we being truthful with ourselves and the people that are close to us?
Spencer?
So Steve, I had mentioned this to you kind of before when you had texted me the subject. I had texted to a handful of people as well, and my girlfriend said, "Well, do you like the topic?" I was like, "Well, what do you mean? Do I like the topic?" I was like, "Yeah, I think it's a good topic." She's like, "No, do you like it?" I was like, "Oh, this is a trap."
Pull up.
It's like, "No, I really like the topic. I think it's a great topic." She's like, "Okay, good." So I think if you say what you mean and you do what you say, that solves 99% of your problems. Even if you can't fully do it, but you do your best efforts to attain those goals. Again, all we have in life is our reputations. So if you do what you try to do, and if what you're saying is on the path of what you are trying to do, then you will be very honorable in this life, and people will know that you have given it your best effort to do those things. If you say something that you can't deliver on, and you can't deliver on, you're just, in sales and in life, it's just a very slippery slope. So as far as the topic goes, I think it's very, very simple. And I think that if you can do things in life, you say you can. If you can't, you say that you can't, and that gets you out of a lot of very sticky situations. As far as the rum goes, Amy, thank you so much for the rum. Yes. I truly enjoyed the experience. I mean, to try these 4 has been an exceptional experience, and I hope that more and more people can try these types of rums at your place, and can be, for bourbon lovers, I think they would really love these types of rums. And Steve, thank you.
But just for legality, they cannot right now.
Right.
Okay.
Cool. And Steve, thank you for the cigars. I always appreciate your time and everything like that, especially on a night like tonight.
Yeah, no, I'm happy you guys came over. I know that the weather was not the greatest. I do want to thank our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, Altadis USA, BS Cigar Company, and also patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. That's to you guys out there that are supporting the show. Greatly appreciate that. I think it's the one point that I really kind of hung on to was that I translated was it's not always a popular thing to be straightforward.
Right.
And to
Correct.
Say what you mean. There are potential consequences to that business deal, that personal relationship, but by you sugarcoating it or not being true to yourself, and Amy just kind of said that, you end up, it might work out for a while. You might have a client for a while, but then the truth comes out in time.
Just backpedaling. You're
backpedaling. Now all of a sudden they ask you for something else and you can't really follow through with that, but you try to do it just to not lose that client. And it's like, you don't want all the business. You want the business that'll make you money.
Or you don't want a short term, you want a long-term relationship.
And that's where I was going with it, is that you translate that same thing. You don't want that friendship, that romantic relationship that in the short term, by not really being true to that relationship. And again, the business, you can keep that business going, that client going. But if you start bleeding out your actual bottom line, you're like, I'm not, like, this doesn't make any sense. Why am I doing this? I could make more money off of 4 other clients doing it the way we do it on our pricing, or I can do this with this client and I'm not making really any money anymore just to keep the cash flow coming.
Or do it the right way. There's a right and a wrong way to do it.
So yeah, that's my point, is that, doing, as far as meaning what you say, that is a thing that you can actually translate to so many other aspects of life, that it's easier to be honest long term.
Yeah. Short
term, it might suck. And you might be the one that is not happy with the outcome of that. But by doing that, hopefully long term, you either learn that, like, well, I could have actually done it a little differently. You're right.
Yeah.
But at the time, I kind of just did what I thought was right for myself and the other person. But if you put that other person or that other party, the client first, just to make them happy, you're not going to say what you mean, and you're not going to do what you say because you don't truly believe in that. So it's about the honesty with yourself and putting yourself first, or your business first, that you have to survive to have another client. You have to survive that personal relationship on your side first, so that you can actually be that person for the other person, whether it be friendship or romantic or whatever. I mean, this is a very universal concept that if you know how you feel, you got to be able to, or what's going to actually survive yourself, make yourself thrive, that you can do this long term. Because if you don't, it's just going to blow up in your face or their face, and it's just going to be, you put it off until you can't. Like, do you look good in this outfit? Yeah, you do. And then you go to, as Amy alluded to earlier, or said, they go to their real friend. Mm-hmm. Do I look good in this outfit? No, you actually look terrible, and here's why. Boom, 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 boom. And then all of a sudden they come back to the person that they're like, yeah, you look great. And you're like, I don't look great in this. I look like this. And you're like, I don't know what to say here.
You should try this other one on.
You look great in everything. So yeah, don't just try to make people happy. Say what you mean. Do what you say. That's the whole point of part 2. Again, thanks to our sponsors. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for the rum, Amy and Spencer. Thank you for your handsome entertainment. Cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
I'll take it.
I know you would. Thank you very much. Everyone out there, thank you very much. Share it, like it, review it, all that good stuff. Have a great week.